biggest embassy in Europe, if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese physicians which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them where we need to. Because for us...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side, this is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK, and immediately I look down at my sheet and it says Tuesday the 21st of January. It's actually Wednesday the 21st of January. That boy that's back, that Damien, so much to answer for. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. JK here. I just want to start by saying, and I don't expect any sympathy at all, I've got man flu. My knees hurt. This is the sort of morning when I was a kid. If I'd said to my mother, Mum, I don't feel great today, I get croaky, a bit snotty, and she'd have gone, yeah, and I got pneumonia in the Second World War, you're going to school. Because hard-working Brits should understand this. All these soft people that go, oh, I'm not going to work today. We are here, we are on. Excuse the voice, it will crack, but we've got so much to talk to you about. Yesterday's show was astonishing, of course, when that news broke that Donald J. Trump had finally laid into the Chagos Islands deal. Well, he went further overnight. He basically told Starmer to straighten out the UK. He said London's got real problems. There's a bit of a dump. It was a lengthy White House briefing where our very own Harry Cole, who's done a great article in The Sun today, Harry Cole, saving the West every night from 10 o'clock, he put this question to the President of the United States of America.
To hand the base of Diego Garcia over to Mauritius and then rent it back was an act of great stupidity. Previously, you backed that deal. Is it now your position that the deal should not go ahead?
I think that they, when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
It really did kick off yesterday. We'll say a very good morning quickly to Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. How are you?
Good morning. All good, all good.
I've never seen the dial move like it did yesterday when we dropped that sort of nuclear Truth Social bomb at about 5 to 7, with him basically saying, Chagos, disgraceful, totally weak, sort yourself out, Starmer. And what was great is Simon Danshuk, who was in your chair, came up with the line, and I think it was the line that really sold it to me, which was a bit rich from our Prime Minister to stand at that "I'm addressing the nation" on Monday and say, it's not for Donald Trump to march across the globe and into Greenland, it's up to the Greenlanders. But of course, our Prime Minister gave away the Chagos Islands and 16 billion quid without even so much as asking the Chagosians, which just about sums up how we're thought of now on the international stage. That's fair enough, isn't it?
It's an incredible point, actually, to contrast Greenland and the consent there is or isn't there from the people and the democratic rights of those people. Cracking words from Trump in one sense on Chagos. But last night, Labour MPs went through the lobby. We voted on this last night. We voted on the Chagos situation. Those Labour MPs walked through that lobby. They can't really believe that this is in our national interest. What a scary outcome for the country.
Somebody gave me a figure yesterday, it was Christian, 34.7 billion quid in total this deal will cost. You're basically giving away something that's ours, and I know exactly why, because we're talking about a human rights freak who thinks that he'll look good in the eyes of the world if he gives away something. Let's apologise for everything Britain was, blah, blah, blah. But when your own people, Matty, right, are struggling, the people now listening to this who are up earlier, maybe, you know, they're struggling with bills, food's through the roof, energy's through the roof, council tax is through the roof, the things that matter, and he's giving away nigh on £16 billion to Mauritians who won't pay any tax for a year. It's ridiculous, man.
Utterly balmy in the best of times, but when you look at what's going on in the world now, the scariest, you know, people have talked about the ever more dangerous world. Well, we're seeing it now. We're seeing it in real time. We're seeing challenges with Russia, challenges with China.
Yeah.
And he's taking now, of all times, to start handing over strategically important.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to ask you about something to say, but let's go back to May. This was Keir Starmer on the cost and the importance of the Chagos deal.
This cost is part and parcel of using Britain's global reach to keep us safe at home. And it will be less than the cost of running one aircraft carrier for a year. Today's agreement is the only way to maintain the base in the long term.
Sorry, we haven't got any bloody aircraft carriers, and we owned it in the first instance. I mean, that for me is... We'll talk all about Chagos. I am duty-bound, though, to ask you the question. I put this yesterday to Andrew Griffiths. We tried to get James Cleverly. The Tory party started the negotiations to get rid of the Chagos Islands. True or false?
That is not... You have discussions with all sorts of people and all sorts of...
But that's what Griffiths said.
You had a discussion about we had on breakfast. We didn't decide and dictate and sign up to anything. The fact that this
I want to know why
ongoing,
the Tories had the discussion in the first place. That's my question that Andrew couldn't answer yesterday. Why?
People ask you all sorts of questions. International players will ask other countries all sorts of questions. The fact we weren't signed up was because we weren't willing to sign up. We weren't willing to be bent over and give away all this cash and completely defeat our own national interest. That's why it didn't happen.
But removing the money, did the Tory government have any part of a belief that the island should be given away for some... No, not at all.
Completely opposed. It doesn't stop people asking you. You remember all these marbles discussions? Like,
oh, the Elgin Marbles.
Yeah, you know, people might ask you a question. Doesn't mean they're going to get the answer they want. Of course, there's discussions about all sorts of things.
I'm telling you,
wrong.
I've got one of the best performers from the Tory party on this show this morning. Matt Vickers is here. If you want to be part of the debate, so much we're going to line up for you today. 0344 499 1000 for those voice notes. Get them in nice and early to Christian. Text 287 That was Chagos. That was Trump overnight laying it on. Let's come to the other big news story, which infuriates the hell out of me and many other people. Front of the Daily Mail. Despite MI5 warnings to kowtow Keir, I see, yesterday the Chinese embassy, this super embassy in the middle of London, right next to security fibre optic channel, I did all sorts of stuff, right? Despite all of that, it's passed last night, despite warnings from our security services, despite protests. Samara Gill, our roving reporter, was down there the other day. I mean, they really have told him it's too near-sensitive telecoms cables. There's spies in this country. Don't do it. Why the hell, Matt Vickers, is Keir Starmer going through with this?
Well, I mean, they keep describing it as Peking's. It's an insult to poodles to call him Peking's poodle.
Why though? Why does he do it? What's the point to this?
You like to think that you can get inside someone's head and understand the perspective. I cannot understand why, when MI5 are warning about this, the experts, the people who are on the front line, who have the greatest of understanding of what's going on out there, are against it. It's completely counterintuitive to think that we should allow the Chinese. They've got spies running around Parliament. You know, we've got a spy case, espionage case, in our own Parliament that was allowed to fall through as a result of government action.
I can't mention that because I got into trouble once for mentioning that. But no, listen, I'm with you. And if your own security services, the service that is, you know, here to protect the nation, are saying, no, this isn't good. What? Somebody said to me yesterday, I suspect that when he went to visit China all those months ago, in return for trying to cosy up with trade deals and, you know, get beyond the EU, etc., he might well have already signed this away. But I mean, it's unbelievable. PM gives China go-ahead for super. Embassy security service say it cannot eliminate the risks. The Tory party on this, very much against this, yes?
Completely against it. It's on our own doorstep. We are literally ceding ground to people who have sent spies into Parliament. That is atrocious.
Do you know Dan
Absolutely
Jarvis,
atrocious.
the security minister?
Yeah.
Right, Dan Jarvis yesterday, this is him justifying it. Have a listen, have a watch.
Issues that continue to be raised in the media reports are not new to the government or the intelligence community, and an extensive range of measures have been developed to protect national security. We have acted to increase the resilience of cables in the area through an extensive series of measures to protect sensitive data. And I can confirm that, contrary to reporting, the government had seen the unredacted plans for the embassy. And this government has agreed with China that the publicly accessible forecourt on the embassy grounds will not have diplomatic immunity, managing the risk to the public.
So listen, I like Dan Jarvis, but Christian's absolutely dead right. Why do you need more security around the cabling if you're not actually believing that there are security risks? I want to know what this bloody government is getting from a deal that our own security services, our own people, everybody on every political side is saying is absolutely counterproductive.
What we need, you need
what
to
are they
keep hold,
getting
you need
from
to
the
keep
Chinese?
hold of that clip, because in 2 years' time we're going to be saying, told you so. Why on earth did you stand up?
Well,
and
you'll
allow
be
us
here
to
in
go
2
ahead?
years,
That's
won't
what's
you?
gonna happen.
Oh, no. I know what will happen. If the Tories ever get into power, you'll do what they all do to me. Yeah, when? You'll be like, you know, you'll be like, I'm sorry, I can't come in. I'm a minister of the Crown now.
We will be looking back at this and we will be saying, told you so. Oh, what a surprise. It's an absolute act of national self-harm. And we're trying to wonder, I mean, what on earth is he thinking? But why? I still can't actually
Love to know your thoughts this morning. Seriously.
Why.
So Donald Trump describes the UK as a dump. London needs sorting, and frankly, our Prime Minister shouldn't give away the Chagos Islands and all this money. He says, quite rightly, get your act in gear. Then we get the Chinese embassy. Let's give it the go-ahead, Keir Starmer, despite almost everybody, not only in your own party, the security services, across the political divide, saying it is absolutely nonsensical. I don't want to go on about it, but you'd have to think that some sort of deal has been done with the Chinese for us to cede this to them. It has to be
There's
that.
no understanding his motivation for doing such a ridiculous thing. No. Something will come out. Something will come out, and we'll learn why in the future, I'm sure.
Graham's got a question for you. Morning, Graham. Oh, sorry, this is really funny. The computer's frozen, and as I went, morning, Graham, Mark's little voice went, my computer's frozen. It's ready now. Morning, Graham.
Morning, Jezza. I see you got Matt Vickers on this morning. Can you ask him a question? When is he going to defect to reform? Because I think he is as good as Jenrick, and he should go to reform. Please ask him that.
Oh, look, he's loving life now.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Well, we hadn't actually spoken to you since the Robert Jenrick bombshell, and I answer his question first because I'm going to cede some ground to you in a minute.
So first up, Jeremy, if I was ever going to break an exclusive, it would obviously have to be here. So I've got it for you exclusively.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking with the people who elected me as a Conservative. I believe Kemi's giving it rock all at the minute. I think she's got a lot to offer. I think people should stand up, pay attention. And make a judgment when the time comes. I think the reality is there is a big dividing line between the Conservatives and Reform. Well, between the Conservatives, Reform, Labour and all the others. We're the people who believe we should be reducing benefits. We're against the action of that two-child cap. We have a different view. We think that the world needs Britain needs to live within its means.
Some people say to me, all you do is promote the Reform Party. No, I don't. I'm going to give you something to grab hold of here. A report in The Sun today saying that in a latest opinion poll, Kemi's approval rating, Kemi Badenoch, since she dealt with Jenrick, is now higher than Nigel Farage's. So is it working, the job that she's doing?
Well, I think there's a long way to go. She's out there making the pitch. People are paying attention. People need to pay attention, actually. You might not agree with everything that Kemi says, but you know exactly where she stands. She's got the backbone. She's exactly what this country actually needs to reflect on the way that we're hemorrhaging money out in welfare. It needs some home truths. We need to be honest with people. She's the woman to do it. She's got the backbone. She says what she thinks. She says what's right, regardless of how it polls. She's not about press releases.
Massive response from the Tory membership to how she dealt with Jenrick. We hadn't spoken about it. Showed real strength, most Tory members are saying. You don't have to if you don't want. From a personal point of view, you knew him. I mean, obviously, it was pretty haphazard the way the whole day transpired. What did you make of it all as a Tory MP?
So Rob's a good friend of mine. I backed him in the leadership race. But you know what? We had a leadership election. We had appointed a leader. I think she showed balls of steel, actually, when she went out there. And, you know, it's not easy when you've got, for all she knows, we might not have all agreed with it. It could have all ended very badly, but she had the gumption. She got in there. She showed some backbone. She made the decision. She was decisive. That's the sort of leader we need.
It's really interesting because the next day, obviously, Andrew Rossendale. Do you imagine that there will be any more? Genuine question.
There's debate about others who might go.
But you're not one of them.
I'm not one of them. I'm staying put, Jeremy. People out there voted for me as a Conservative.
That's my next question.
I'm delivering as a Conservative.
I'm really strong on this, and it might confuse a lot of people. I don't believe you can cross the floor without there being an election in the constituency. You might disagree. We'd love to hear what you think of it, Alarm Clock Brits, but I don't think you can say I'm standing as a Tory or Reform or Labour or whatever and then stay for 3 years having crossed the floor without getting that mandate from the local people. What's your views on that?
I think it's a very valid point. The problem with these things is there's always a tweet, isn't there? These people who cross the floor have always got some point historically where they've tweeted and criticised someone else for doing it. I think in the system the argument goes that they elect an individual. I think you probably should go back to the electorate and let them have a say, particularly if it's this far out. I mean, how long have we been in office? If it's at the back end, maybe it's a bit different. But
so if you crossed the floor, you'd hold an election in your... You'd hold
I'm not crossing the floor,
Are
Jeremy.
you sure about that?
Oh, that's the first call.
We'll be playing this in a year's time when Matt Vickers is representing Reform and he'll say, I know, but things change. No, listen, respect. You're right. Morning to everybody listening. 0344 419 1000 for your voice notes. Text to 87222. Trump's dissed Starmer again. Starmer said yes to the super embassy. A report out this morning says that Kemi is increasingly more popular than Farage. Just talking about Reform quickly, they got clearance yesterday to take, well, the government to court over the banning of these local elections. I just want to go to the Mail, page 6. I know people say to me, God, you find conspiracy in everything, Kyle. Sir Lindsay Hoyle, ex-Labour MP, is he trying to keep his job? Sir Lindsay Hoyle believes that elections set to be cancelled by Labour in May should indeed go ahead, which I think most sane people do. Is this because he suddenly worked out that the people that gave him the job aren't going to be in power very long? He speaks for everybody, doesn't he? How can they cancel the election?
I think it is insane that they're cancelling it. It's like dictator stuff.
It is.
Terrible. And there are excuses around the fact that they're, you know, restructuring local government and changing about. Well, if you're doing that, isn't it just completely and utterly ridiculous that you would do it when you're due to have an election? And why are they going out to ask council? If it's a thing that can't be done because of whatever reason, then it shouldn't be. Why are they taking a poll of councillors who may or may not be about to lose their job to ask them whether they think it's a good idea to have an election? It completely stinks.
But the criticism that I'm going to give you, which you understand, is certain Conservative councils have agreed to cancel this as well.
Two in the entire country. But
that's not a good look, is it?
It was the Conservatives who led the charge against the legislation that's allowing... We went through the lobbies, we voted this down, we tried to prevent it going through as...
OK, so if the Conservative Party were in power or you were in a position...
We would be having these elections.
You would be having them. And those councils that have agreed with it, they would have a hard time, yeah?
Yeah, well, it's in black and white.
I'm not sure you're allowed to say that anymore.
You can see what people...
I'm sure
we voted to prevent this being allowed to happen. We voted to prevent the legislation going through.
Let's say good morning. Morning, Dan.
Morning, JK. Good morning, Matt. This is Dan from Kent. I don't think this has been talked enough, but the Chagos deal, the actual funding for it is actually coming out of our defence budget. In a time when our military is depleted, I think the money could have been better spent elsewhere. Great show.
The Chagos thing winds people up. He does make a really salient point, which is My government, we're trying to save $5 billion off the welfare bloated budget, and he got shouted down and it was but $1 million at the end, something like that, right? £16 billion. Think of all those pensioners that were screwed over their heating. Think about those farmers, those waspy women, and I'm just throwing stuff out there. 16 billion quid. And if the total yesterday is right, nearly 35, it's a third of our national debt. How is it that this government comes up with money, Matt Vickers, when they need to, but the rest of the time they've got niche?
Well, even if the thing with this is we're spending this money from a defence budget. We are spending this money to make us less safe. We're actually giving away a strategic post that helps with our defence, and we're paying for the privilege of doing so. It is insane.
That's like you giving away your house and some money. Yeah. I bought me house, or this is me house, I've inherited me house, have me house, and I'll give you a couple of million quid as well. Morning to Sean in Gloucester. JK, Keith Stalin is an incompetent idiot, we all know that, but he's proved beyond doubt he's also dangerous, upsetting and lying to Trump, giving away the Chagos and allowing the Chinese embassy. He goes against every piece of advice from the security forces and lets fighting-age men, including terrorists, in. Good morning to Louise in Ipswich. Did you notice that the President thinks we are selling the Chagos Islands? We're actually paying to give it away. We're that stupid. Oi, Kyle, correction. What? We have 2 state-of-the-art aircraft carriers. Oh, I'm sorry, aren't we? Not one, we've got 2. Oh, we are a world power, aren't we? Morning to Joe Hanlon. Joe's in Shrewsbury. How come never hear Keir is not going to Davos? Get out there, you coward, and face Trump like a man and like a leader. Nigel Farage is going to see Trump out there. Why isn't Starmer going to Davos?
He seems to enjoy getting the air miles in, but the problem is, wherever you send him, it comes back with a huge cost. God knows what he'd give away if we sent him out to Davos.
Tony says, you might think this is outrageous. Jez, I think Starmer is pivoting to China. He's a Marxist who despises America. It's obvious.
I mean, there's big you know, when you look at what's going on now, like diplomacy via Twitter, this relationship that we're meant to have with the US, where you're meant to be a critical friend. Those conversations that you should be able to have behind closed doors as a friend with
I keep saying, I suspect, and I wouldn't know from Adam, that if Donald Trump is the sort of bloke that you stand up to and give him your good for and he gives it back, and I bet he admires that more than, oh, can I pick up your paper? Can we all be friends? Even when he did that Greenland thing, it'll all be, we should talk about it. I'd have gone, no, you're not doing that, right? But he's just proven a time and time again.
I mean, what does it say about that special relationship and where we've got to? It's just not really there.
Dave's in Shropshire. Morning, Jez. I can't understand why the government could ignore advice from NI5 over the Chinese embassy. And is there anyone that can overrule this decision? No. And for you, Dave's in Worcestershire. Can you ask Matt if he's against the Chinese embassy? Why did the Tories sell them the land? They knew it was for an embassy, says David in Worcester.
Well, you've seen the plans. There's special secret rooms now emerging on the documents.
Did the Tories sell them the land?
I don't know the ins and outs of who sold them the land, actually. I should know that, probably. But the reality is that this thing was rejected by the local authority, who were given the say on the planning. It's now been signed over, allowed to go ahead with this huge building right next to these fibre optic cables. It's a no-brainer. It shouldn't be going ahead. It's an act of national self-harm.
I say good morning to the working men and women of Great Britain, the hard-working alarm clock Brits. You're waking up to the news that Donald Trump has torn another one off Keir Starmer and said that basically, straighten out the UK, it's a hellhole. You can't get yourself right. The Chagos Islands deal is a national disgrace. You're waking up to the news that Keir Starmer's latest airbrained idea is to give away permission for the Chinese to build a super embassy in the middle of London, right next to sensitive telecoms cables and all sorts of stuff, even though MI5 said you're a bit of a nightmare. And if you are working, right, and you are struggling, I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you've been on a night shift, maybe you're already sat in traffic, it's pouring down, the kids are giving you grief, the wife's in your ear. Don't worry, because when we come back from this break, we're going to tell you how an extra 1.5 million people, that makes it 4.2, are sitting at home in the warm claiming benefits. Back in 3.
going on up in Greenland, the arguments that he's making, we cannot have China or Russia in our hemisphere. They will take it over if we don't. Just complete and total military nonsense. Russia already has a massive Arctic pressure on their own border. They don't have any need to take it, much less the capacity to send naval forces out over that much water and to take it. I mean, just as a means of comparison, there is a lot of debate whether China can go the 100 miles across the Taiwan Strait and retake that country.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:26 Wednesday morning. We're live across the UK. A very good morning. This is Talk Breakfast. Jeremy Kyle here with Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, reviewing the papers and looking for a girlfriend. Good morning to Anna. How are you?
Yes, Matt, Anna, sorry. Unlike the Chagos Islands, I've just had my tax bill that I've got to pay to keep all the idlers in this country. Matt, until you and the Tory party put your hands up and admit to every single thing you did wrong, nobody will trust you again. Nobody. You're a nice guy, but it's not washing. Cheers, guys.
I will say before he speaks, he is one of the very few who comes here and does this every week. Your words.
Getting amongst it, I think, do you know what? I think we have said that government got things wrong. We said quite a lot of things that the government got wrong, actually. We're under new management. We've got a new leader. We do know that wasn't a minister in the last government, so my party, I can say, was responsible for all sorts of things. But
was there a lot that you disagreed with your party during the last?
Well, I got into lots of trouble when I voted against things. You know, I'm not somebody who didn't go in there and have.
You got into trouble.
You can get your hand slapped if you vote against things that the government's doing. So I got into, you know, I didn't quietly sit there and nod my head at everything that went through.
I will say this, not because Matt's a friend, Anna, and I'll address this. So he and Jenrick are close. Jenrick will be here tomorrow to do Ring Rob. Robert has made his decision. You have to, though, give credit to a man like Matt who believes in what he believes, has put his hands in the air and gone, we made loads of mistakes, but I'm going to keep fighting the fight. Whether you agree with that or not, that's all we want, right? That's all we want is people to have, in effect, the ability to stand by what they think. Charles is in Thailand. Lucky you, I'm not going into it. I think Starmer is bottling going to Davos as he's too scared of being ousted in his absence. Ousted if he leaves, and if he gets there, he's going to be torn to shreds by the Donald. Our national debt, says John, is closer to 3 trillion, is that right?
I mean, it's growing by the minute, I think. The reality is the economy is going completely the wrong way. There are things that increase national debt. There are things that put your taxes up. There's wars, there's pandemics, and there's Labour governments. They waste money, no end. They're throwing this money at Chagos. They're throwing this money at welfare and benefits, and yeah, we're all going to have to pick up the tab at some point.
More from Trump now. In this world of nobody knows what's going to come. He's a very good friend, he said about Keir Starmer. Then he ripped him a second one. Then he ripped him another one overnight. He's got so many... Anyway, now he's back saying, well, listen, this is Donald Trump. Have a listen.
I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, you know, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, you know, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, you know, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have 2 problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well.
I am totally not going to apologise for what I'm going to say. Take him with all his flaws. That is common bleeding sense. Our country is on its backside, heavily in debt, and in his words, right, we've got liquid gold under the damn sea. I love those moments. I just think good on you, Donald Trump, because that nobody can say isn't right on that.
The reality is the ban on North Sea.
Is he not right? He's right.
It doesn't help anybody. It's costing us a fortune to import the stuff.
Then why didn't you lot frack?
Jobs.
Why didn't you lot frack? Why didn't you drill when you were in power?
We've gone from fracking to banning taking oil and gas out of our own, you know. But it's not environmentally friendly because we're importing the damn thing. It's causing even more in terms of emissions. It's just a no-brainer.
I keep saying this about the energy thing. I don't understand how anybody with a brain cell can accept that. I'll tell you what, let's build some windmills because it's good for the environment. We know that we don't create enough energy with those windmills and we'll have to import more from abroad, which will cost more. And my favourite line is that if it blows too much, if you wake it up, that doesn't sound right, but if it blows too much, we can't save the energy because it's too expensive. It's an absolute national joke and we are on our arse financially, and he's right. He's absolutely right. I love it. They get a little bit rough when I'm not around. Some must be terrified. Jason in Worthing, you're guest speaker. You're a guest speaker. Saying it was the Tories against the stopping of the local elections. It's laughable. Reform are the ones who have taken legal action against it. Actions speak louder than words, Matt Vickers.
Reform were taking legal action against the grooming gangs thing as well. How far's that got? Any updates on that?
That's all. Yeah, you see, we'll have an argument and we're friends. That's one of the biggest shames of the Tory government and this government, that nothing has happened on that.
It's shambolic that it's gone on this long, but you can make statements that you're going to take legal action, you're going to do this, that, the other. It's about what you actually go out and physically do. You can tweet about something all day long.
Why didn't the grooming gang scandal? Why did an inquiry not happen in the 14 years that the Tory party were in power? Well, serious question.
Until that fantastic journalist brought up the 50 towns he identified. We had an inquiry. It should have gone a lot further. The government should have been doing a hell of a lot more than this. We shouldn't have had people in authority scared to death to call something out because of community relations and race relations. It should have never been a thing. But what the last government did do is set up the Grooming Gangs Task Force. There was thousands of victims identified, thousands of people arrested. The reality is it's now emerged 50 towns in this country where it's been going on under our noses. Councils have turned a blind eye. Authorities that are there to protect people have turned a blind eye. It is an utter disgrace. Anybody responsible should be convicted. Anybody who turned a blind eye and should be held to account entirely.
Hello to Damon, who says, good morning and welcome to the Matt Vickers Show with special guest Jeremy Kyle. Oh, here we go. Damon from Wigan. Cheers. I just want to thank you and the team behind the glass. All right, behind the glass, G-Spot and his mate. We called Damien G-Spot because you can never find him. I just want to thank you and the team behind the glass for bringing us the United Kingdom live about what's going on, the truth. Labour are killing this country and other loony ideas that deeply hurt us. There's their ideology which is ruining our country, and I have to say I'm going to continue fighting against it. Good man. Let's move on to what I said. Page 2 of the excellent Sun newspaper today. Oh, God. Labour's benefits explosion. 1 million more don't have to get a job. The number of people who are not working and claiming benefits matters risen by 1.5 million since Labour came to power, meaning there are 4.2 million people on universal credit with no work requirements following a surge in mental health claims. Alarm clock Brits, I'd love to know what you think before I implode. 87222 texts will come in. We have to always say that there are people who cannot work for mental health reasons, and I think that the way our society has started to have those debates is great. But we also have to face up to the true reality is that there are huge numbers of people in this country feigning mental illness or any excuse not to work. And when a government makes it even easier for people to do absolutely zilch, no work requirements, 4 million people taking universal credit. You get the people, they'll phone and they'll go, oh, but what about me? I'm not talking about the genuine people. I'm very happy to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning with man flu and pay my taxes. But I am increasingly not for the lazy and the feckless that this government are wiping the backside of. It is a joke, man, and people are fed up with it, fed up to the back teeth.
It is atrocious. And actually, you need to reinstate face-to-face assessments. The government should not be giving anybody... They should treat the money as if it's their own money. If you don't...
They don't, though. That's a really good point.
It's this pot. Everybody just think it grows on trees. Those people who make those assessments should actually think about it as if they're spending... Because they're spending your money. They're spending the people whose alarm clock's gone off this morning have gone to work at daft o'clock. It's them who's paying for this. There are people out there who need support. There are people... It's supposed to be a safety net. It's supposed to catch you when you fall. But
actually, it's supposed to help people that need it and not wipe the backside of people who are taking the mickey out of it.
Ever-growing number of people... It's not good for the taxpayer. In fact, it's appalling for the taxpayer. That's why taxes are through the roof. But it's actually not good for these people. It's not good for people to sit at home all day, unable to live out their aspirations. It's bad for people's mental health. It's actually just a really bad thing for people to be out of work. And what does it do for their kids?
I remember saying to Cameron years ago, interviewed him and said, in my opinion, The people who are on long-term benefits, it does them much more good. Gets something on the CV, motivates them, gets them out of bed, to get them to do something in the community in return for what we're paying. Maybe close the borders and stop telling me we need millions of people in this country to be hospital porters and jobs like that, and make the people who can't find work give something back for the money that we are giving them to do nothing. And I know what will happen. There'll be an explosion of texts going, I'm physically disabled and I'm mentally ill. Yes, and we want to support you. But here's the question to those people, here's a point rather. You're missing out and not getting as much as you can because people are gaming this ridiculous, bloated, unfair, soft as whatever system, aren't they?
Yeah, well, we're in it. You've got kids out there now, will be growing up where neither parent goes to work, nobody in the street goes to work, but we're in a doom loop now. Because the more she taxes and taxes anybody who tries to earn a living, the more businesses that go to the wall, the more people that are then unemployed. Unemployment is up 21%. They've only been in 18 months. So we pay ever more in benefits. We then tax ever more to pay for it. More people are put out of work. The entire thing is just being driven down.
How does anybody think that is fiscal sense? How does anybody think that that doom loop that you just said makes any sense to anybody? How did people vote for this crap?
People were fooled. I think, well, actually, you know why people voted for it?
Because you lot did such a bad job.
You know why people voted for it? Because it was so long since we'd had it back that people forgot how bloody bad it was.
Yeah.
Every time they get into office, people are put out of work. Every Labour government
I didn't vote Tory, but I can tell you categorically that Matt Vickers has just spoken the biggest truth that we've spoken today. Every single Labour government that has ever appeared on the horizon in this country, when they leave, this country is broke. Completely broke. Morning, Steve.
Steve from Barnsley. Good old Trump has hit the nail on the head. That North Sea needs re-establishing for our energy. And can we please stop calling them windmills? They don't make bread, they make energy. They are wind turbines. Calling them windmills really sags my man breasts. Thank you.
Windmills sags my man breasts. Welcome to Alarm Clock Britain, courtesy of the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. Before I go to a break, the Tories, JK, stopped drilling in the North Sea. Now, Vickers agrees with Trump to drill. Can you see how this looks to the voter?
We didn't stop drilling in the North Sea.
I've given you the chance to respond.
So the Labour government decided that we would not have any licences going out for North Sea oil and gas. That is a positive. We didn't stop drilling in the North Sea. But you know what? They're taking all of their policies from Dale Vance. Remember these idiots who were gluing themselves to roads? Those people backing the Labour Party now, and all of a sudden Starmer kowtows to it and says, OK then, let's stop it.
Dale Vance, the man that owns Forest Green Rovers.
Supporting the Labour Party, and all of a sudden they're writing their manifesto for them and deciding what the policy is.
I might as well nail it on a Wednesday morning. I'm very privileged to do this job, but here's the truth about drilling and fracking. I don't care about the friends of the earth, and when people say to me, oh, what about the next generation? Their problem. We're in debt, we've got an asset, drill, take the money out. Back in 3, ludicrous.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 21 minutes to 7 o'clock. Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party, is here. John in Newcastle, or even Jan. Well done, Jez. I've been saying this forever. Starmer is a Marxist. Just look at his history and in his younger days. When he was made leader, he managed to hoodwink millions of people with his play acting as a left of centre because he knew it was the only way we'd get into power, to push through his Marxist policy. The man is deceitful, unprincipled, manipulative and a complete and utter liar. There we go. Have you been to Bridlington?
I've been to Bridlington. Wonderful place.
I got
wonderful
offered
place.
a summer season once in Bridlington. Sean, how are you? I don't know why I've done that accent. Have you seen that Labour has found another 15 billion quid to spaff away on heat pumps and solar panels for benefit claimants? Where's that money coming from? There's a story I want to touch upon, which we covered yesterday on this station and on this show. Do you know this Jennifer Mello story? This nurse who referred to a transgender paedophile patient as Mr. This is a woman who worked all her life to become a nurse, has served for 15 years and has helped people, OK? She's doing her job one day after the end of a probably very traumatic and long shift for no money. There is a convicted paedophile in front of her, ladies and gentlemen. This is a kiddie fiddler, right? Let's have this straight, right? Who she mistakenly calls Mr. because he's now identifying as not a paedophile, but as a woman, despite the fact he's fiddled with kids. He's allowed to call her the most disgusting, vile thing in the world, the N-word, and she has to face a tribunal yesterday as to whether she's keeping her damn job. Samara Gill, our reporter, went down there. I'm delighted to say, thank God, common sense actually prevailed. Have a watch, have a listen.
There are great spirits over here, Jennifer. You have been exonerated. How are you feeling?
You know what? I just busted into tears and shaking. I said, thank you, Lord. This is such an incredible moment of my life. And seeing that we have victory. And now we urge West Streeting now to put in the policies immediately.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What do you have to say to Labour? I mean, they weren't very supportive to you throughout this entire sort of journey. What do you have to say now? At least you've triumphed and you've won. And I've got the Darlington nurses, some of them behind me as well, who were exonerated last week.
Yes, I just want to say that it's important for us to recognize that as a nation, we need to, you know, to be an example, and in leadership, especially for the members of parliament. You're there to protect and safeguard our nation. And for this, should be a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah. Jennifer, it's been 2 years of hell. Your own daughter lost her job over this. You obviously couldn't do your passion of nursing for 2 years. Is it going to be back to work after this, or is it going to be, you know, maybe a career in politics? Who knows? I mean, you're a force for change.
Well, I want to just thank God, and we take every step as it comes. But I'm glad that I'm able to go to work, and that's what is important now, you know, and just thankful that I have no case against me, and I can go back to work. And yes, and we got the victory, and this is my career, and I love my job, and I love nursing, and that's why I did my training with University of Greenwich here, and did very well ever since, and I enjoyed every moment of my nursing career.
Great scoop there from Samara. Jennifer Mello, I know people say, God, Jez, you get on one. Can you, in really calm terms, can you explain to me how we have got to a point in my country whereby a woman studies and works her backside off to get to be a nurse, to give back, works hard, a bloke who fiddles with kids and has been convicted, decides he wants to change his sex, gets offended she mistakenly calls him Mr, uses the most derogatory term any person can call a person of colour, and she has 2 years of hell, Matt? That is ludicrous.
It is unexplainable, isn't it? It's
rubbish.
Balmy. But then, I mean, the reality, 2 years of sitting there waiting for the outcome, that in itself is a crime. The fact that this woman's had to be on the end of the line for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years of not going to work.
And I'm going to call it out whether people like this or not. I've interviewed him on many occasions, and I thought he was far more sensible than he's showing himself. Wes Streeting, you think of the puberty blockers thing, which sends me through the roof.
Experimenting on kids.
Experimenting on children who have had a bad start in life at the age of 8 to see if it's okay whether this drug... Do me a favour, Wes Streeting. Stories like that and stories like Jennifer Mello. You want to be going round the rounds of Westminster trying to become the leader. You want to do something about getting rid of these disgusting stories. The puberty blockers, Jennifer Mello, all of this stuff is outrageous, isn't it? There's no common sense to it.
Well, the Darlington nurses case this week, when that's finally come to rest and common sense has finally won through, but your wife, your kids going and having to get changed in a space that... I'm all for people can do what they want, they can dress how they want, they can live as they want, but it shouldn't impede on other people's rights to feel safe in a changing room, to be able to go about their daily business.
We've gone the other way. I mean, I won't name them, but, you know, there's some sort of what I call activists, female commentators, who quite rightly have talked about the dangers to women and women's safety and all those things for years, and I've absolutely supported it. But when I say I don't want my 15-year-old teenage girl going into a swimming changing room where a bloke in a dress with a penis is changing, I'm apparently being disrespectful to that person, whatever their pronoun is. What about the safety of the girl?
It's madness.
I don't understand the duplicity of their argument in that instance. 0344 499 1000. Dave's very angry. He says, stop talking rubbish about unemployed people. DEI has made straight white men unemployable. I have 2 degrees, have applied for hundreds of jobs with no results, and I've now sadly resigned myself to the fact that I will never work again. How bad's that?
Well, I mean, you see the figures, you see the challenges for anybody who wants to create a job. Slammed with national insurance, slammed with business rate hikes. It's ever more difficult to employ anybody. I mean, things that are going in this country, we're losing pubs by the day, 2 hospitality businesses down. That's it, the death of the Saturday job. Kids can't get a job on the Saturday. What was your first job? Mine was collecting glasses in a pub.
Mine was stacking geese bananas in Marks and Spencer's and a pair of woolly gloves for £1.65 an hour, I'll have you know. Bit of fun now. Oh, actually not. In Spain, to get benefits, you need to do at least a month of social work. Absolutely right. And there's sunshine. Lindsay Hoyles that says John is the sitting Labour MP for Chorley. Is he the Labour defector heading to reform? No. Chris, Jez, great for the nurse. Common sense at last. Fair play to Samara. Your thoughts on Jennifer Melley? We'd love to hear your thoughts on the shocking figures that now 4 million people are claiming involuntary benefit. They don't have to work. We'd love to hear from you on that, on the Chinese embassy and on Trump. But the big news story, which just won't go away, which I'm just going to have to do this, OK? I don't want to. It's on the front of the Sun again for the 83rd day on the bounce. The Beckham fallout. Whose side are you on? Overnight, the world's gone nuts because apparently it all comes down to Victoria Beckham grinding on her son at his wedding for a first dance, which got the ever-creative Christian and the team to work out, what's the most embarrassing thing your mum's ever done to you? I mean, mine's dead, so that's not going to happen, but what's the most embarrassing thing? We want to hear from you. I mean, my mother never grinded on me at my wedding, all 3 of them. But, we didn't make the last one, I know, I like wedding cake, but... Right, 87222, bit of fun. Just let me. The wife's just texted me. What's the most embarrassing thing your mother's ever done to you, Matt?
I don't know. I'm trying to think off the
probably giving birth, I imagine, is it?
I think it probably... Also, there is a big difference between some people's mother grinding on you and Victoria Beckham grinding on you. I think that would be like a debate out there, wouldn't it?
Hold on a second. Whoa, hold on a minute. So you'd like Victoria Beckham to grind on you?
I'm just saying that the difference in opinion as to who the mother is.
He literally is gone the colour of his tie. I'll bring that back to you, Mr Speaker. You'd like... No, Victoria, no. But it's just a bit of fun in a sea of misery. What's the most outrageous thing your mother's ever done to you? Mark, Christian, anything at all for you? They're not prepared to say... Nobody's got a mother all of a sudden.
People do wild things at weddings, don't they? That's kind of...
You don't want your mother grinding on you, do you?
Yeah, probably not.
But I'm not really sure where I stand on all of this. Everybody seems to be obsessed about it. Half of me thinks, Nepo baby, shut up, you wouldn't be where you are. And the other thing is, yes, it's all about Bran Beckham. So it'll be very interesting. So if you do give a damn, 87222, what's the most embarrassing thing your mother's done to you? It's 10 to 7. Morning, Jim.
Good morning, Jeremy and the delicious Mr Vickers. Very simple question. It's Jim from North London here. Matt, when are you going to leave the non-Conservatives and come over to Reform? Please, we're waiting for you with open arms. You know, you've got until May, so you've got a little bit of time to sort yourself out. But come on already. You know it's going to happen eventually. We are the true Conservatives. So if you're a proper Conservatives, this will be your home.
World exclusive. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sticking with Kemi. I think she's got a lot to offer. I think there is that big difference out there. Whoever, for whatever mistakes the Conservative Party's made, the Conservative Party still stands for what it's always stood for. We've now got a swanky new leader. She's got balls of steel. She's delivering. If you haven't been listening to what Kemi's had to say, get amongst it. Give her a fair shout. Hear what she's got to say.
She is in the Sun today, an opinion poll now more popular than Nigel Farage. That is a fact. That is an opinion poll.
She is the person who's on the side. Those people whose alarm went off this morning, those people who are grafting their backsides off and paying ever more in tax, they need to be looking at what Kemi's saying, because she's on their side. Is the Conservative Party that are going to reduce this huge, bloated welfare bill? Is the Conservative Party that are going to live within our means as a country and make it worthwhile going to work and earning your keep? We're on the side of the people who do the right thing.
I'm a great fan of Matt Vickers, but if you want to listen to a man who says he'd like Victoria Beckham to grind on him for the morning, it's up to you. 10 to 7, back in 3.
Obviously, the US military base at Diego Garcia is very important to the United States. Again, this ties in with China because Mauritius is a sycophant to China, gets money from China, sucks up to the Chinese state. And you would be giving sovereign control over Chagos to a Chinese acolyte, and that cannot be in the interest of Western security. It's a pity that Donald Trump hasn't concentrated more on Chagos and a bit less on Greenland, because Chagos seems to me to be an immediate present risk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 7. We're live across the UK. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock. Brit and Matt Vickers is here, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. 0344 499 1000. Donald Trump has told Starmer, straighten out the UK. Don't give away the Chagos Islands or I'll rip you another one because you're too scared to come to Davos. That's great. This is 12 hours after Keir Starmer, despite MI5 saying it's ludicrous, giving permission for the Chinese to build this embassy. You're waking up to the news that almost 4 million people now are on universal credit with, and I mean this, no work requirements. We also heard the great story of Jennifer Mellé winning that case yesterday. Just a disgusting 2 years of hell because a transgender paedophile was called Mr. by her. He called her every name under the sun, but she had to wait for 2 years to see whether she had lost her job. Let's say good morning very quickly to Sean about Trump's comments on Broken Britain.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. Listen to that poor nurse there who's hopefully going to get a job back now. You know, it shows what's wrong with our country. When people say it's broken, okay, people just think it's immigration. But for me, it's not just about immigration. It's about immigration. It's about this poor nurse. You know, it's about weak on crime, weak police, bent coppers. Everything's expensive. You still can't get a dentist. You still really can't get a doctor. And it's all these things rolled into one, right? What's just making our country far worse. Oh, it's just nuts, mate. Great show.
Matt, that's, you know, genuinely, that's what a lot of people think. You think of council elections, you think of that Jennifer Mellé, you're thinking of crime on the streets and prices in the shops, and it's hard, right? It is hard for people.
This is a government that is just not on the side of people who do the right thing. If you work hard, if you try to create jobs for people, they're just going to batter you. They squeeze and squeeze.
If you run a business, you're right, you're screwed.
Take it from you and deliver it to people who aren't going to work. That's kind of the entire mantra behind this government. Is clueless. And on the NHS, strike after strike after strike. You've got doctors getting 29% pay rise and coming back for another 26%. And the government's idea is dole out the cash. Of course people go on strike more. Of course that has a huge consequence on those people on those waiting lists now trying to get access to the NHS that they've been paying for years.
I think this government is epitomised by actually Starmer's approach to Trump, which is he kowtows. He's kowtowed to Trump, he's kowtowed to the Chinese, he kowtows to the Union. There's no backbone to actually say, no, I'm not giving you that, I'm not doing that, it's too expensive, we haven't got the money, it's unacceptable. Maggie, I am with you, my darling. Isn't there enough going on in this broken country other than worried about that spoiled privileged brat even, Brooklyn Beckham. By the way, it is all about, apparently, Victoria grinding on her son, and I did just throw out there 87222, what's the most embarrassing thing your mum's ever done? Christian admitted when we went off air his mother used to send him to school in Easter bonnets. And possibly a dress. Hello, Damon. The most embarrassing thing my mother-in-law did to my wife was coming out as a lesbian after 25 years while married to her dad. Great. There we go. You can never quite get away from the Jeremy Kyle show. Leslie in Rugby says Matt is gorgeous, but I unfortunately can't vote Tory after 40 years of voting for them. But maybe if you got with her, you could turn her. That doesn't sound right either, does it? That's, oh my God, it's all gone wrong.
That's what happened to that guy's mother-in-law.
I know. Can I just tell you, this show goes from serious to light-hearted, and that is how I think it should be. A couple of other pieces of news. Later on, bit of an exclusive. We're talking to Lucy Letby's lawyer, after MPs called for her convictions to be reviewed after yesterday prosecutors closed the outstanding cases against her. It's an incredibly emotive subject, quite rightly so. A woman is in jail. There have been lots of people, certainly David Davis, a very respected politician, saying that he has serious doubts about all sorts of things. I'm not asking you to put yourself out there, but this is a story, Lucy Letby, that doesn't seem to go away.
I think, do you know what? There's legal processes in place. There's a established process to get to the bottom of the rights and wrongs. But I think for those families affected by this, those families and what happened to those children, to see this thing going on and on and on in the newspapers must just be devastating. You know, you've seen it. You've now seen justice done, supposedly, and somebody's gone to prison. For those families, this is just heartbreak, and it should not be allowed to keep dwindling on. The justice system in this country, everything takes too long to come to a conclusion.
We're going to speak to a lawyer later, and just in terms of interest, in terms of what was said. Also, very quickly, the other piece of news today, I know this will absolutely... I'd like your response. Meghan Markle's Netflix show has been cancelled. Now, as somebody who's been cancelled, it must be a terrible moment for her this morning. Tough, you odious wrench. Honestly, and he said wench. Honestly, Meghan Markle.
Ever popular, isn't she?
She is about as popular as the runs. Let's be absolutely... Do you not think, or am I being unfair?
I think you've kind of got the public sentiment is perfectly there.
Chris, I love this show. Morning. My most embarrassing moment with my mum, God rest her soul, was when she broke wind loudly as I just walked down the aisle at our wedding. It was a small wedding, and the entire room knew what happened. We go from that to Tad, who says, Kemi Badenoch insists Britain is not broken. I don't give much for her chances at the next election if she can't see what's evident to the rest of us, including Matt Vickers.
Well, I think, do you know what? There is a thing about saying that Britain is broken, in that this is a bloody great country. There are amazing people out there doing amazing things every day. Is our politics broken? Our politics is broken. Is our government broken? Our government's broken. Britain is still a bloody amazing place, so much so that everybody wants to come here.
I think they want to come here because we're soft. But my point of doing this show has always been, yeah, we can still be a great country, but we need to redefine what makes a great country and look after the people that are actually working to make the country great, instead of rolling out everything to people who come here willy-nilly. Matt Vickers, what a legend. It's a Wednesday morning. He'll be here every Wednesday for all your admirers, be it Jim or, in fact, the lady in Rugby. Listen, you're waking up to the news that Donald Trump has told Starmer to straighten out the UK. You shouldn't be giving away the Chagos Islands. You're a pretty crap Prime Minister, to be perfectly honest. This is the day after Starmer went, I know my security services have said creating a Chinese embassy, a super embassy in the middle of London is not a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm my own man. You're also waking up to the news that now 4.2 million people are on universal credit. And for Britain's workers, for the alarm clock Brits, how does that make you feel? Loads coming up on the show, lots of calls. We'll start next hour with Isabel Oakeshott. We'll talk migration, we'll talk Starmer, we'll talk Trump, and we'll talk Meghan. Not. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes, and 87222. Start your message with the word talk. For text, news at 7 next.
It's one of the biggest sporting spectacles on planet Earth. Super Bowl 60, and you could be there. Enter now at talk.tv/win for the chance to score a fantastic 4-day trip for two to the City by the Bay, San Francisco, including tickets to Super Bowl 60 and $2.5 grand in cold hard cash. It's Hail Marys and money. Enter now at talk.tv/win and get set for a gilt-edged trip to the Golden State you'll never forget. For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Just gone 7 o'clock. It is Wednesday. What is it? The 21st of January, and I've got man flu. But as my mother, bless her heart, used to say, you weren't in the Second World War, you haven't got pneumonia, you're going to school. You're waking up to several pieces of shocking, brilliant and amusing news. Donald J. Trump has told Starmer on the back of yesterday, telling him, why are you giving away the Chagos and 16 billion quid, you idiot? Right? Don't lecture me on Greenland, where you can't even deal with hypocrisy. Today, or overnight, he said, you need to straighten out the United Kingdom. The country's a mess and you're not very competent. This is Donald J. Trump taking aim again at Starmer and Macron.
I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well.
Whatever you think of Donald J. Trump, he has just nailed it again for me. Your country has two major problems, energy and immigration. And you've got an asset under the North Sea which would pay off your £120 billion debt. So all the hard-working Brits who are going to work this morning and paying their taxes just to break even are watching that and going, how come we've got a Prime Minister then who's so fiscally incompetent that we ain't got any money? Oh, by the way, breaking news, inflation's gone up again. I don't know what it means. It's risen to 3.4%, says here in December. Oh, December, 3.4% up from 3.2%. Basically, all that means is everything will continue to be expensive in this doom loop. The government, it's really simple. I don't want to sound like my mother. Really, I don't. But you get paid and you have assets and then you spend. It's called debit and credit. The Labour Party will spend your money without telling you what it's for, presumably on things that don't make any sense. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes. Text to 87222. Morning, Ray.
Morning, Jeremy. Ray in York. Until we change the mindset of those claiming benefits, this country won't change at all. My daughter's worked for a high street bank since she was 18. She's in her 30s now. She worked every day during COVID. And the thing that annoys her the most is when benefit claimants come in and ask if their wages have been paid into the bank account. She looks at them and says, I can't see any wages, but I can see benefits. That's the mindset we're dealing with. It needs to change.
Couldn't agree more. Shocking figures this morning are the main news that 4.2 million people are now on universal credit with no work requirement. And that's the point, isn't it? We're all happy to pay into a system that helps those who can't help themselves, but there is massive frustration, increasing anger about a system that says, right, you all go to work this morning, alarm clock Brits, all of you do your bit, and you can sit on your backside, you're feckless, lazy, sorry, it's the way it is, and get benefits. And before people jump up, The point is, yes, there are physically disabled and mentally ill people who can't work, and they should be supported, but they're missing out. The system is missing out on these people because other people are playing it. It's 7:06. All your involvement, please say a very good morning to a woman who has made this possible by simply moving her location. We love her for it. Isabel Oakshott, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Well, I'm top of the dial, and I obviously agree with Trump that there are two big problems, immigration and energy. And I love the idea that, you know, we could just straighten those things out. But I mean, it's not really just two problems, is it? And one of our callers there just hit the nail on the head. One of the other massive problems is the ballooning welfare state. You know, you could sort out energy and you could sort out immigration, in brackets, I wish, if only that would happen. But while you've got a massive welfare state and our country basically looks like a welfare state with a country attached to it, we're going to carry on having massive problems.
Couldn't agree more. And you know, sometimes, and I'm sure the viewers and listeners feel the same, I feel like a stuck record. When we left school, not you, you're much younger than me, you either went to work or you went to college/university. I don't care if this is unpopular. It was never meant to be the welfare state what I think it's become, which is you can leave school and go to work or college or sign on. And the very people who get angry, Isabel, when I say 4.2 million people, today's figure on universal credit, with no work requirements. We'll get lots of messages from people saying, Jez, I'm on benefits because I'm physically disabled, because I've had a real mental breakdown, and I go, yes, that's what I'm happy to pay for. But I am not happy to pay, as are other hard-working Brits, for people who are just taking advantage. But that, actually, Isabel, is symptomatic about so much in this country. We make it very easy for migrants to come into this country and be given almost every goddamn thing. But if you're a hard-working Brit, you can't get anything from a system. And that's why people are so angry. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could just come to that issue of asylum seekers and immigration, and add a fourth problem to Donald Trump's list of things that need straightening out. And that fourth problem is the squanderous attitude towards public money on the part of this government and previous ones. And I want to give you a little example this morning. It's a tale of an immigration detention centre that happens to be quite near where my home is in Oxfordshire. Now, we all know we've got a massive problem with illegal immigrants, failed asylum seekers, foreign criminals, all of whom should be deported. So you'd like to think that every detention centre in the country would be chock full and ready to go to get those failed foreign nationals that we don't want in our country back to their home countries. So I've been keeping a pretty close eye on this detention facility that's near where I live. And here's the thing, Jeremy, it's been through a massive programme of refurbishment. Now, this isn't an old building. It was working just fine up until 2019, when the Tories, in their infinite wisdom, decided it was time to reduce the use of immigration detention centres, which is precisely the opposite of what they should be doing. So they closed it. And then after that, the government decided it was time to revamp the place. It needed a bit of an upgrade. Now, how much do you think it would be reasonable to spend per asylum seeker on upgrading that accommodation? If you think of it per bedroom for each asylum seeker, how many thousands of pounds do you think it would be reasonable to spend of public money on making it a bit nicer for failed asylum seekers and foreign criminals?
Not very much, sorry, not very much, because I'd make a detention centre not a particularly nice place, which might send the message that it's not worth coming over and trying to beat the system, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I'm really sorry to report that the amount of taxpayer money, your money, that has been spent upgrading this facility is £437,000 per immigrant.
Sorry?
£430,000.
Sorry, can we just stop there? How much did they spend on the refurbishment?
70 million.
Oh my
and what did that 70 million buy us? It bought us 160 spaces. So if you divide 70 million by 160, you get £437,000 and 500. I mean, you could have bought them. I don't want to give them ideas or anything, but you could have bought them each a 3-bedroom house for that and more.
How many are in this 160 detention centre then? Go on, tell me it's worthwhile.
Here's the thing. So I had somebody drive past that detention centre. I spent a curious amount of time driving past that place. I'm not around at the moment. So I got somebody to drive and go and have a little look at it earlier this week. It was curiously deserted, even though it reopened to some fanfare in December. So we thought we would check out how many people are actually in there, because actually all we could see was a couple of very bored looking security guys. So after this multi-million-pound revamp, and as this government tells us it's so serious about deporting foreign criminals, you'd hope it would be chock full. But oh no, according to the Home Office, in December, the only figures they'll give us, the only precise figures, are those for December, when there was 9.
Oh my God, I'm going to go nuts. Oh, why'd you do this to me? This is ludicrous. We've got 4.2 million people sat on their asses doing nothing, and we've got 9 illegal migrants in a 5-star place in somewhere in Oxfordshire that we spent 70 million. Oh my God. Is it any wonder, on a serious note, why people are getting more and more frustrated with the incompetence? Do you know the word is, Isabel, the unfairness? That's a great story, because it is about fairness, and I think your average Brit, and I know people don't agree with this who don't listen to Talk or perhaps think like us, but what I call the average hard-working, you know, family with a couple of kids, you do everything you can, they're on the road right now, they've just come off a night shift, they must listen to this show and think, right, so you get everything if you come in. We've got assets we won't use because we're bankrupt. We give land away and money. A nurse can be called the N-word by a transgender paedophile because she called him Mr. by mistake, and she's, you know, on the dole for 2 years and facing heartbreak. It just, none of it in this country makes sense anymore. And that story, I mean, £70 million and it's only housing 9. I do have to say, and I know, you know, a lot of people, you know, the Tories and whatever, Matt Vickers is right. They squander, the Labour Party, your money. That's the point. I'm not sticking up for the Tories when I say that, but there is absolutely no way that you can justify just a government that seems to have totally the wrong, I don't know, priorities. I've got a voice note, and it says here, play to Isabel. I mean, it could be a jeweller trying to get you to get a ring off Richard Tice. I've no idea. Morning, Pete.
Well, you've got Isabel on, have you? When you get Mr. Tice on next, you could call it Ring Richard, couldn't you? Because the word ring he doesn't seem to like. Has he got that ring yet?
Oh, I love this. Ring Richard. Okay, I'm loving this idea. I think, folks, we've got to keep the pressure up, you know.
Any news on the ring? I mean, we can talk about immigration, but we're more worried about your engagement. Any news, any sign of it from Tice?
Do you think that as every week goes past, the value of the ring should go up? Because that might make him hurry up.
Listen, I think inflation's just got up 3.4% from 3.2%, so I think the value of the ring climbs on a daily basis, Isabel. I think it's the least you deserve.
He's really in trouble. Now, look, I just very quickly want to say, in the interest of fairness, so we don't get complaints, in the interest of fairness, I think off the record, the Home Office is guiding us that there might be as many as 50 currently 50 detainees in that immigration centre. But I do also want to say that they claimed, and this is not the off the record bit, that they can't have too many going in there at once because it would destabilise the facility. I kid you not.
Destabilise. This is a great, great story, Isabel. Honestly, these are the stories that make people just go nuts. Can I bring you to something else, and thank you for that. We talked Trump. We spoke to you yesterday, and that went absolutely viral. I'd love your take as the international talk editor on this Chinese decision. I don't understand this at all. You've got MI5, front of the Daily Mail, MI5 warning to kowtow Kia. PM gives go-ahead for this super Chinese embassy in the middle of London town. Major concerns that it's nearby sensitive telecoms cables. You've got Dan Jarvis, the security minister, standing up yesterday and basically saying, well, we've taken that into account and we'll have extra security to make sure that doesn't happen, which is an admission that they've got concerns. We know the Chinese have spied, and we don't know an enormous amount about the spies, but If your own security service says to your own Prime Minister, this is a dangerous game, again, what the hell is going on in his brain?
I mean, this is just so outrageous, isn't it? I want to make a couple of points about this Chinese super embassy. First of all, I just want to paint a picture of just how gigantic this thing is going to be. Because if anyone comes to central London, they'll be used to seeing other embassies in the old kind of beautiful Georgian crescents in central London. They're kind of like big townhouses.
Yeah.
Now, this thing that's proposed, looking at the size of the average football pitch, an average football pitch is about 77,000 square foot, okay? Now, the plot size of this new Chinese super embassy is 235,000 square foot.
Three and a half times the size of Wembley pitch.
I mean, it just is absolutely gigantic. It will be one of the largest embassies in the whole of Western Europe. And one of the things that Dan Jarvis said yesterday really stood out for me. He said that the planning system cannot deal with national security concerns. And I'm like, say what? You know, the planning system seems to be able to deal with, you know, some grumpy Mrs. Miggins and, you know, Tom Thumb down the road that doesn't like the look of the, you know, the little extension you've planned on your kitchen if you live in a village. And that the planning system takes an awful lot of account of. But the planning system can't deal with national security concerns. Well, if that's the case, we need a new planning system.
Let me play, actually, if it's OK, again, to balance it out, because it's important people get the chance. This was the Security Minister yesterday that Isabel's referring to, Dan Jarvis, on everybody being concerned about this Chinese embassy go-ahead. Have a watch, have a listen.
The issues that continue to be raised in the media reports are not new to the government or the intelligence community, and an extensive range of measures have been developed to protect national security. We have acted to increase the resilience of cables in the area through an extensive series of measures to protect sensitive data. And I can confirm that, contrary to reporting, the government had seen the unredacted plans for the embassy. And this government has agreed with China that the publicly accessible forecourt on the embassy grounds will not have diplomatic immunity, managing the risk to the public.
Publicly accessible forecourt will not have diplomatic immunity. Tells me everything you need to know. Can I just put it in basic terms, because you're far more on it than me? There's got to be something in the theory. What are we getting from this? We know that the Chinese are, I'm not being disrespectful, are a superpower, and there's been spy allegations. Let's put it like that. When your own security services are saying, this is a bit of a red line, excuse the pun, and your Prime Minister's ignoring it, it does lead conspiracies to say, well, what's in it? There was talk of him, he went to China, didn't he, on a visit. People are saying he might well have agreed it then. Does he want bigger trade links with China? What do you, as the international editor, believe is the reason behind Starmer's decision, Isabel?
Well, I think there's a bit of that. You know, Labour have always said, and I'm afraid the last lot did too. I mean, Cameron and Osborne were awful on this, that, you know, we have to be sort of pragmatic in our dealings with the Chinese. I actually take a very different view. I think that there is an astonishing naivety about what the agenda of the Chinese is. The agenda of the Chinese is to be the greatest superpower on the planet, and they are utterly ruthless in the way that they pursue that. And it isn't about allegations of Chinese espionage. It is about very, very well proven cases of Chinese espionage. They are all over everything. And the last thing we should be doing is making it easy for them by plonking them into the heart of London in a prime location. I know, I'll never forget, Jeremy, when I was writing a book on the state of the armed forces in the UK, I used to go to a lot of defence conferences at which our top brass would all be there, and there'd be lots of speeches. No, we would blithely allow delegations of Chinese military officials to our own defence conferences. And I'm thinking, yeah, let's just reverse that, shall we? And imagine if a bunch of British Armed Forces personnel turned up at a Chinese Communist Party military convention, would we be let in? I don't think so. So it's time to start playing these people at their own game.
Couldn't agree more. Just before you go, all about balance. We've got to give all sides as a opinion. I mean, Reform have announced they're going to get a legal challenge against Labour's plans to cancel local elections. I think everybody is in favour of that. But there's a story this morning that surprised me. In The Sun, a huge boost for Kemi Badenoch as Tory leader becomes more popular than Nigel Farage for the first time in over a year, Isabel Oakeshott. That's an opinion poll this morning.
How many people were polled and which was the polling company?
Common Move, I think it's called. 2,000 people. Are you surprised by that?
Never heard of Common Move, sorry. So
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, Jeremy, Jezza, this is important. She's not Kemi Badenoch.
Oh,
There's no bad in Bade. She gets very antsy about this, and I don't know if you're aware, there's been a whole row about this because old Bobby Jenrick got it wrong and he got into an awful lot of trouble.
Got told off on some radio programme, didn't he? Like, that's important. I'm always concentrating on you, but I've got this terrible thing going on in my head because I've got 4 television screens above the screen, and Ed Millipede is currently sitting on Sky, because he won't come here, justifying Davos and why he doesn't drill. He is slightly strange, isn't he, Ed Millipede? Anyway, listen, I should tell everybody you've moved heaven and earth to be with us this morning. We really, really appreciate it and absolutely love that story. In the wrong way, obviously. 70 million on a detention centre, only 9 there. Isabel Oakeshott, thank you so much for joining me this morning. 7:22. We're live across the United Kingdom. So inflation is up to 3.4%. We're skint. Trump said to Starmer, sort out London and start drilling. Starmer's gone, it's all right, build a Chinese embassy. It could be a security threat, but it'll be lovely. Let's do that. And 4.2 million people are sat on the dole and don't have to go back to work. Welcome to Wednesday. Morning, Perry.
Morning, Jeremy. It does drive me mad when you have these Conservatives come on and they think just by saying, yeah, we hold our hands up, we got things wrong, they think that makes that all right. You know, all this woke nonsense all started with them. You know, it was the Conservatives that dictated what car I can have. You will only have the car that I allow you to have. It was under Conservatives where the late James Whale was going in the hospital for cancer treatment and they were having to ask him if he was pregnant before they were giving him treatment. All this nonsense started with the Conservatives, and all them just coming on your stage say, we hold our hands up, we got things wrong, please vote for us, because none of this will ever happen again under the Conservatives. You know, like, we really must believe them.
We are now a country that is so weak, we cannot actually stand up for our own sovereign rights in our capital city. We feel that we have to kowtow to the Chinese because the government so desperately wants Chinese investment, so desperately wants a Chinese trade deal. And the reason I said I don't think it's any accident that this has been approved today is because I think with what's happening in Greenland, as it looks that relationships between the UK, Europe more generally, and America becoming more hostile, I wonder if the government is taking a note out of Mark Carney's book.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 7:26 in a tick. Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. We'll talk Chagos and we'll talk about that ridiculous decision by Starmer to allow that super Chinese embassy. Loads of you wound up with these shocking new figures, by the way, today. The number of people who are not working and claiming benefits has risen by 1.5 million since Labour came to power, meaning that 4.2 million people are on universal credit. And I keep putting this point because it's important. Yes, many genuine people we're really happy to pay for. But let's be honest, right? No work requirements. It's become a bleeding choice. Bruce is in Lincoln. Jez, just out of interest, how do I get my weary backside onto benefits? I've worked for 41 years. I listen to talk when I'm at work and I wait for your show to start. I don't stop until halfway through Kev's show. So I've always put my shift in. I'm just asking myself why. Why the hell do I do this anymore? Because I've self-respect. Maybe because I feel I need to put my shoulder to the country's problems and do my bit. For me, why isn't that an attitude that prevails elsewhere? Could not agree with you anymore, Bruce. Chris also. Benefits, just look at the immigrants who fiddled 54 million. That says it all, and got 18 months and then given a home and more benefits. So where's that money, John? I completely get it. Jack is in Birmingham. No requirement to work, yet I get a call every month without fail regarding my unemployed son who has autism and doesn't leave the house, yet they ask me how are things going. He also receives PIP for mobility as he doesn't leave the house, but they harass him to find out work. And apparently, see, that's where it goes wrong. He's the very kid, the very person that we should be supporting. And yet the authorities are chasing him and not the feckless and the embarrassing and the reckless. Loads to talk about. Donald Trump, we'll talk embassies, we'll talk those figures. More of that fantastic victory for Jennifer Melley, that nurse who spent 2 years fearing for her career after she mistakenly called a paedophile a transgender paedophile, so that's a kiddie fiddler who's decided to become a woman. She called him Mr. He called her the N-word, by the way. That's the country we live in, and she's been on trial for 2 years. Samara Gill talks to her ahead of 8 o'clock. Oh, and just because everybody honestly comes into, what do you think about the Beckham? Not really interested, but apparently the latest is that they're really upset because Victoria allegedly grinded. Is that so? Ground? Anyway, she did one of them, the botty dances, as I call them, to her son on his wedding day, which has caused the argument, which led us to say, what's the most embarrassing thing that your mother's ever done? Morning, Paula.
Morning, JK. Great show as always. The most embarrassing thing my mum ever did was on my 24th birthday, we went out for a meal with family and friends, and I used to enjoy a drink. And she said to me, Paula, please do not get drunk and embarrass me. I said, all right, Mum, no worries. We went out and she drank a whole bottle of Mateus Rosé to herself before other people had even arrived. By the halfway through the evening, I think she'd drunk about 3 bottles of it, of the Mateus Rosé, and she went to the toilet, came out, and for some reason her knickers were on her head. And we're all looking at her and laughing and wondering what's going on. And then she proceeded to get on the table. She had a long dress on, I have to add. And she then got on the table and started dancing, waving her knickers around in the air. And the waiters had to come over and say, I'm sorry, madam, you can't dance on the tables just yet. So she said, well, when can I? And they said, in a little while. And then she got back on the tables and she was gyrating with the waiters. And I'm just sitting there thinking, Mum, you asked me not to embarrass you. Anyway, she ended up being sick all night with her friend rubbing her back to make sure she was fine. Yep, love you, Mum. Love you, Mum. Love you, Mum. Great show, JK, as always. Paula, London. Take care.
Unbelievable. I just was expecting little stories like this one. Quickly, Keith in Wolverhampton. As a kid, it was embarrassing when outside the school dates every Monday, hundreds of kids around, Mum used to spit in a hanky and wipe the Tide mark off my face because I hadn't washed my chops properly. We've all got stories. How did your mother embarrass you? Mine's dead. 87222. Let's start your message with the word talk. Right, let's get to it. A very good morning. You see, that's what this show is about. Light and shade, a journey through the morass of the news. Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. I bet you never thought you'd be coming on after we talked to somebody about an embarrassing mother story. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. No, I didn't think that. And you're light in the shade, so I'm the shade, or am I the dark bit of the show this morning?
Well, it depends. Have you got a story? Did your mother ever embarrass you, Philip Ingram?
Oh, continuously. But now that she's passed, I'll not embarrass her by telling the stories.
Very good. Now, see, that's a professional. Well done. Philip, I spend every morning trying to work out increasingly the motivation for some of the decisions that this government makes. Let's start with this ludicrous, it's in every single newspaper this morning, MI5 warning to kowtow Kia. Despite our security services warning our Prime Minister that this super embassy, which we've just discovered is 3 times the size of the Wembley football pitch, despite them saying they cannot eliminate the risks, Philip, this was passed through the Commons last night. And I just want to ask this question, because to a man and woman, everybody seems to see a problem with this. What do you believe is the motivation for Starmer to have cleared this?
Well, I think the indication is that Starmer is off to China next week, and he wants to try and secure some form of economic deal that will dig him out of the poo that Rachel Reeves has got us into. And therefore, he's looking at things from a very short-term perspective. He knows perfectly well that there are going to be so many legal challenges that it's not going to be built during this Parliament, and the chances of him being Prime Minister in the next Parliament when it becomes a proper headache are virtually nil. So he's just kicking the ball into the long grass, knowing that he's not going to have to deal with the issues.
So it's a PR exercise, you believe, and his desire to get closer to China is from a trade perspective, you're saying, yeah?
It is a PR exercise, but it's got long-term implications. China thinks in multi-generational terms, and once it gets its feet under the table in the City of London, where it can access not just the cable communications, but the increasing communications that are transmitted wirelessly through Wi-Fi and all the rest of it across the City of London, it will give it the opportunity to gain economic advantage by being able to suck up all the signals that are going around through the banks that keep the City of London going and the international financial institutes, decrypt any encryption that's on there, and get ahead of the game when it comes to all of these financial deals. And that will give China a huge economic advantage, which is what they're after with this.
I'm sure you're right. Did you see the Dan Jarvis interview yesterday when the security minister sort of admitted that the forecourt would not have diplomatic immunity, so that the security services have made the government aware that this could be an issue? And you think to yourself, so you're fully aware, but actually, Philip, what you said I think is very interesting, because so many things that governments pass or talk about don't ever come to fruition. I think there was something the other day that wouldn't start till 2040, but it just to me is another example. On the back of Chagos, which I also wanted to talk to you about, we were sort of merrily going on our way yesterday morning, and then this Truth Social bombshell from Trump, and whatever anybody else, me, thinks of Trump or Greenland or whatever, he's absolutely right at the hypocrisy of a Prime Minister who stood, or rather addressed the nation on Monday and said it's for Greenlanders to decide who runs their country, and yet we gave away the Chagos Islands without asking the Chagosians to a country, Mauritius, that's close to China, and perhaps as bad, Philip, for me, in a country that is skint and is paying 10 billion a month in interest on its debts, we gave these people 16 billion quid and they're not paying income tax for 12 months.
Well, 16 billion quid, it's probably closer when you add it all up to, I've seen figures going up to 36 billion quid, and it's front-loaded, so it's coming out of this year's, next year's, and the year after's budget. And of course, the government is citing some non-binding rulings by United Nations courts that were loaded with Chinese and Russian sympathizers. But what they seem to have ignored is other criticism that's come from different United Nations bodies saying that the will of the Chagosian people should be taken into account. That just happens to be pushed aside. So, the baseline facts are, we own the Chagos Islands. We are under no legal compulsion to give them to Mauritius, but not only are we giving them to Mauritius, we're paying Mauritius to have them, and we've only secured a deal for 99 years with an option for potentially another 40 years for the US and UK strategic base on Diego Garcia. We have to remember we secured a 100-year agreement with China over the new territories element of Hong Kong, and China then just ignored that, and we did nothing about it. We are opening up a long-term security headache, not just for us, but for the whole of the West.
And again, very much, you're the security expert, as I asked you about the Chinese embassy. The motivation behind this, I mean, maybe what I'm going to say to you sounds a bit flaky. Is this the human rights lawyer with his friend Hermer trying to look across the world as the man who, you know, is apologising for Britain's past. I don't know, wants to be seen as somebody who would pay reparations for all the terrible mistakes we made. Because actually the man's a laughingstock. I mean, Trump put it in his place overnight and said your own country needs dealing with. You've got law and order problems, you're giving away territory, and, you know, you need to be stronger. I can't, again, for me, work out the motivation. It's a bit like somebody said to me, Philip, I've got a house, I'm going to give it to you, Philip Ingram, and pay you a couple of million quid to take it off my hands as well. It's ludicrous.
Well, exactly. It is completely ludicrous. There is no logic behind it whatsoever. And when you dig into, I think you're being generous in your assessment. I think there's potential for more in the background. And when you dig into the sorts of things that our Attorney General has been involved in the past, it's the giveaway of the Chagos Islands. He defends Jerry Adams. He helps prosecute.
Oh, Herman's an awful human. I cannot even believe that the man is in the position that he is. I'm just trying to get all sides. Herman, I mean, to try and appear on the international stage as these human rights do-gooders, and in terms of your job, de-strengthening our security position, whether it's with the Chinese or whether it's with the Mauritian government, is madness in terms of foreign policy and madness in terms of our security.
Oh, foreign policy and domestic policy. If you look at the repeal of the Northern Ireland bill that was giving immunity to veterans whenever the terrorists have already been given immunity by the previous Labour government and by Tony Blair's government. And then you look at what's happening across the world with regard to the Chagos Islands and now the Chinese embassy and our relations elsewhere. This government is destroying us internationally, but it's destroying us domestically as well from a security perspective. And defence, the government keeps saying that it's spending more money on defence. The Chagos Island deal is being front-loaded out of the defence budget. So that 16 to 36 billion pounds is coming out of the defence budget over the next 3 years. That means that even if there is this cash increase the government's talking about, in real terms, defence is having to cut its activity for the next 3 years at a time when the world is becoming increasingly unstable.
Philip,
it's shocking.
It's so good to have you on, my friend, with your experience and your knowledge, and I do appreciate it. And great words on just so many people concerned about this embassy, concerned about the Chagos Islands, and just concerned really about the direction of a Prime Minister and a government. Somebody said to me the other day, just to finish, is he British, but is he proud? Does he want to protect and sustain and push this country, or does he want to chip away at all of the things that seem to matter to anybody with a brain cell or common sense and just diss it and concentrate on stuff that really isn't important? That's how so many people feel about him, I think.
Yeah. I think he's in his blinkered little box. He's always been in it with his human rights lawyer bit, and he's never come out of it and taken those blinkers off. Yeah. And every time he tries to do it, people like Hermer come in and then put the blinkers back on him again and feed him more. He just doesn't have the intellectual ability to lead this country in the way it should be led.
Couldn't agree more. Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer, thank you so much indeed for joining us this morning. 20 minutes to 8, whatever you want to talk about. Donald Trump ripping another one out of Keir Starmer, the Chagos Islands, the state of Great Britain. Starmer, yes, have a super Chinese embassy. Let's forget completely about the ramifications. Morning, Mark.
Morning, Jezza. Mark Bridgenorth is driving to work along Cop Britain in the dark and the wet. Only a quickie on the Chinese embassy. I heard the other day that it was Boris who sold the land to the Chinese to build the embassy. Now, not 100%, but this is what I've heard. Can we clarify who started the ball rolling on this mega embassy? Why do they need one so big anyhow? What is the reason? Why can't it just be the same size as everyone else's? I wonder. Thank you, mate. Bye.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Sorry, it's all over the place here. At 19 minutes to 8 o'clock, we're live across the UK. Samara Gill and more about that. Well, that fantastic result for that poor nurse, Jennifer Mellay, in just a tick. Mike's on the Chagos. Morning, Mikey.
Mike in Cheshire here. The government giving away the Chagos Islands is quite simply a precursor to giving the Falklands to Argentina and Gibraltar to Spain. This is the way they'll do it. They managed to get rid of the Chagos Islands, and the next will be the other two. Wait and see.
The thing that I don't disagree with Mike about is this blind madness amongst this government to appease, in their human rights minds, everything that we apparently did wrong. I have this conversation with my eldest daughter repeatedly. You know, Churchill was a racist, Great Britain was this, Great Britain was that. You wouldn't be here in the guise you are if some of the decisions that were taken, which might not be approved nowadays, were taken, OK? That's a fact. This obsession with trying to do right by things that might not be perceived as right today is ludicrous. Draw a line in the damn sand and let's concentrate on what's wrong with this country today. Let's talk about 4.2 million people on universal credit. Let's talk about the threat of a Chinese super embassy being allowed by a Prime Minister who's after a trade deal, whilst our security services are saying, oh, hold on a second, we think this could be quite dangerous. Let's concentrate on making a country that was once great, according to Donald Trump. Let's get crime down. Let's get drilling. Let's make some money. No. Let's walk around going, oh, I think we should give away some land because that'll make me feel better, you total... Bleh. 17 minutes to 8. Good morning, Samara Gill. I'm sorry, I nearly said bell end there, but now I have. There you go. How are you?
Good morning. No, great to be here, Jeremy.
Lovely to see you. Can I just salute you? And this is one of the reasons that we wanted Samara on this show, because just to get those stories that maybe don't get the traction and then go through the roof, because this went viral yesterday. Jennifer Mellay, and I sort of threw my toys out the pram. This is a lady who trained for a large number of years to become an NHS nurse. It was obviously a vocation for her. Was at the end of a long shift doing a job that doesn't pay very much and gets huge amounts of abuse. And a transgender paedophile, this is true, so a man who'd been convicted of fiddling with kids, came for treatment. She was very respectful, but she made a mistake and called him Mr. Pedo boy went nuts and called her the N-word.
Tried to hit her as well.
The most disgusting thing you can say, and tried to physically abuse her. But here's the best bit, not. For 2 years, this woman has tried to clear her name. Nobody in this government, before or after, has done... Where are you, Wes Streeting? You're a disgrace. This is outrageous. It's worse than the puberty blockers thing, and that's bad. Nobody supported this woman.
Nobody did, really, from the Labour side, and you're completely right. And Jennifer echoed that sentiment outside the hearing yesterday. She said, Wes Streeting, where are you? Please change the laws. I mean, it's egregious how they've kind of, in, again, Jennifer's words, tried to sweep this under the carpet and sort of act like it doesn't exist.
But Samara has built a relationship with Jennifer, and finally yesterday common sense won, which is great. Have a look at this report, literally 5 minutes after she discovered that she'd been cleared. Thank God.
There are great spirits over here, Jennifer. You have been exonerated. How are you feeling?
You know what? I just busted into tears and shaking. I said, thank you, Lord. This is such an incredible moment of my life. And seeing that we have victory. And now we urge Wes Streeting now to put in the policies immediately.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What do you have to say to Labour? I mean, they weren't very supportive to you throughout this entire sort of journey. What do you have to say now? At least you've triumphed and you've won. And I've got the Darlington nurses, some of them behind me as well, who were exonerated last week.
Yes, I just want to say that it's important for us to recognize that as a nation, we need to, you know, to be an example, and in leadership, especially for the members of parliament. You're there to protect and safeguard our nation. And for this, should be a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah. Jennifer, it's been 2 years of hell. Your own daughter lost her job over this. You obviously couldn't do your passion of nursing for 2 years. Is it going to be back to work after this, or is it going to be, maybe a career in politics? Who knows? I mean, you're a force for change.
Well, I want to just thank God, and we take every step as it comes. But I'm glad that I'm able to go to work, and that's what is important now, and just thankful that I have no case against me, and I can go back to work. And yes, and we got the victory, and this is my career, and I love my job, and I love nursing, and that's why I did my training with University of Greenwich here, and did very well ever since, and I enjoyed every moment of my nursing career.
Let's just bring this down a minute and talk about that. I love nursing. I worked all my life to get to that. And joyous scenes yesterday, but she's been through hell for 2 years with a government and a society that wouldn't defend her against the most ludicrous, obscene, revolting accusation.
Well, this case, which thankfully you put the real pressure on yesterday, totally went viral overnight. We had basically every politician weighing in from the right side of things, saying how great this was. People from Susan Hall to lots of reform people, etc. So it was kind of unifying in that way. But people are saying you're right. The process was the punishment. And I think that is the case for many of these women, also the Darlington nurses who have been through hell and back, just for basically gendering someone properly. I mean, I can't say it plainly enough. And I think that it's not fair that we live in this sort of like sycophantic world where it's almost, it's like a dark horror film to be outside a tribunal where we're celebrating a nurse who, as you said, she worked all her life to be a nurse. There are many nurses that maybe don't want to be there. She's actually one that really does and loved the job. And yeah, I mean, the fact that a pedophile's rights were put above hers is really at the core of this case. And it was just, I genuinely was on a high yesterday, even myself, when I saw her coming out and getting justice. But unfortunately, there are many, many more Jennifers out there. And we're just thankful that she stuck up for us, because the next time you're at your workplace and maybe it's like with her, it was against her Christian values to gender this person as a female, then Jennifer and the precedent that she's set will actually make sure that you also have rights in your workplace. So we just can thank her and the Darlington nurses.
Completely. And Chris in Lancashire, listen this morning, just the nurse being suspended for 2 years will have been paid her full wage for 2 years, quite rightly. What a ridiculous waste of money, and the loss of her skills for 2 years, and we wonder why the NHS is on its backside. Can I just say, if you're listening to the show this morning and you work in the NHS and you're in a similar position or you know a story, seriously, Samara will come to you. Great work. And I just... I can sit here and I can rant and I can go, this makes no sense. We live in a world where it's all about diversity and opportunity. Where are the people in that instance having a go at this vile kiddie fiddler, convicted, by the way, for using the N-word and being blatantly racist? Not a sign. It's like the people who go on about women's rights and seemingly don't give a toss about teenage girls changing in a room with a man in a dress. It's so double standards, and I just want to say to you, mate, fantastic work. Thank you.
Pleasure. Honestly, it's been an honour to sort of go with Jennifer on this journey, and unfortunately there were some really low points, for her. She was crying quite a lot in the couple of interviews that I did do with her. So I think I'm just happy that she's had justice. But the Labour government, I mean, they still won't change the laws around this. That's what's actually going on.
No, they're too busy giving away a Chinese embassy. Wes Streeting says Pete should bow his head in shame. This country has got everything the wrong way round. The nurse did not misgender the man. The emperor's new clothes, he is a man, albeit a pedo, says Jim. Zarina, that poor woman has been through hell because of a woke fashion. I hope this shines a light on the absurdity of our woke madness. She was polite then, and thankfully she continues to be. Every single person responding, they're just coming through saying great job as well. Samara, you're a legend. Thank you very much indeed. What is it, 10 to 8? It's non-stop, this show, and I've got man flu. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy, Christian and team. It's Sean from Leicester. Do you think Starmer has got a mirror in his house? Do you think he looks at himself in the morning in the mirror? And do you think he actually believes he's doing the right thing for the country? Do you think he's that blooming stupid that he thinks he's doing a good job. And what does his wife say? If I was his wife, thank God I'm not, but if I was, I'd be like, mate, honestly, you need to sort your stuff out. This is absolutely atrocious. Somebody must be saying to him, this is rubbish, you need to do this, you need to do it. He is the worst Prime Minister ever, mate. Honestly, it makes my blood boil. Every time I hear his name mentioned. Anyway, have a lovely Wednesday, everybody.
No more distractions, pointless, costly by-elections. Let's get on with the job.
I don't care how much they cost. Democracy is expensive. Otherwise, we just have a totalitarian state and never bother having an election.
I was elected by the people of Romford, and I represent their views. And that's one of the reasons I've gone to reform, because I speak to everyone in Romford, and they all say to me, Andrew, you know, you've got to do this to me.
So you've actually had support on this. Well, in that case, you wouldn't be worried about having a by-election then, would you?
I'm worried about wasting time when there's more
wasting time? Democracy's wasting time?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. Ian Duncan Smith, former Conservative leader, an arch critic, I should say, of the Chinese. He's been banned, I think, by the Chinese in many instances here after 8 o'clock this morning, talking about that ridiculous decision yesterday by Starmer into allowing that super embassy in London with all the security concerns that come with it. 0344 409 1000, text to 8722. Loads of messages to get to, but I want to get quickly to my next guest. It's been a long while. I love this man. It's been too long. Greg Swenson, chairman of the Republican movement overseas. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good to see you.
Great to see you too. We've had many conversations in the past. Most people know what I think about our dreary Prime Minister. And yesterday, the Donald, well, he tore him another one. Let's have a look at this. This is him on the one hand saying, I get on with Starmer, and then utterly destroying him again. Go, DT.
I think I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, you know, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, you know, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, you know, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well.
Greg, when he was campaigning, we used to speak on a weekly basis on Drive. He's dead right about immigration. He's dead right about energy. And most people contacting this show to a man and woman this morning are going, why can the United States of American president see what's going on in this crap hole that is the United Kingdom, but our own Prime Minister can't?
Yeah, it's amazing, Jeremy. And whenever you see a clip of the president, he's just so honest, right? He's candid, and some people don't like it. They don't like his, you know, his nature, the way he speaks. But he's just really candid, and it's refreshing, and the clarity that you get from President Trump. And you know, yeah, we in the UK all wish that we could get that from the government here, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. But yeah, he's just very honest, and he really hit the nail on the head with his comments.
It's quite interesting because all of the Greenland thing, and people had their opinions, and then of course that sort of speech by Starmer on Monday, I was saying, you know, where he said it's not for Donald Trump to do this. Greenlanders should decide, and Trump just threw back the Chagosian people and the ridiculous Chagos giveaway, and I bet you that doesn't happen. And I wanted to bring it on to something else because you live in London, you're a Republican overseas. I mean, MI5 told Keir Starmer not to agree to this super Chinese embassy. He's gone ahead anyway. I would fully expect your president, Donald Trump, to come weighing in on that pretty soon as well, wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely. And you know, we were all a bit frustrated that he did not come in on the Chagos Islands disaster until 2 days ago. And I think, you know, he's got a lot on his plate right now, the president does. And you know, we wish it was a priority. It was not. And
you don't think he was being clever then, Greg? You don't agree with me that he kept it in his pocket because of Greenland? Because he absolutely, I think, proved complete hypocrisy amongst Europeans by having that conversation.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Jeremy. And I think, you know, he perhaps he did, you know, kind of keep it for the right moment. But and the other, you know, the other issue with the Chagos Islands is it's not on the American taxpayer, it's on the British taxpayer, which is sad to say, but. You know, the president is looking out for American taxpayers, and, you know, he probably thought, okay, you know, this is not a priority because you know, thanks to Keir Starmer and his lot, you know, the British taxpayer is going to be paying a fortune for this ridiculous, you know.
It's like you having a house, giving it to me and giving me a couple of million quid to take it off. Can I ask you, I always want more time with you, Greg, it's so good, we must have that drink. A lot of Americans who voted for Trump, we hear there's frustration that a lot of it is international rather than dealing with the problems at home. Is that a justifiable criticism of Donald Trump?
Well, I think it is. And I think the president will pivot in the next few months because, you know, we have midterm elections coming up in November. You know, sometimes the real world interrupts. And I think the president would rather focus on domestic issues. And I think, you know, he did pivot a bit after the off-year elections in November, where, you know, the Democrats did much better than we had hoped, or much better than expected. And so he did pivot, but, you know, sometimes, you know, reality is, you know, interrupts. And so, you know, he's making the world a better place right now, that's for sure. But I think he will pivot back to domestic issues. I think it's important. That's what wins elections in America. You know, the American voters don't really care that much about international issues. Whether that's right or wrong doesn't matter. It's just I've
got to go, but I just want to leave you with this. It's only been a year yesterday. It's been like an absolute whirlwind. Listen, Greg Svensson, we love you. Republican Overseas, thank you very much indeed. It's almost 8 o'clock. Ian Duncan Smith on the way. Get your texts in for questions to Ian Duncan Smith. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Morning, Russ.
Morning, Jezza. Russ from Leeds. Great show as always, but it is really annoying, sorry. All this politics that is going on just winding us up and making this country worse. Keir Starmer is simply padding his CV. He's adding job roles and looking good with examples of what he's done to help the human rights of the world, rightly or wrongly. He'll go work in Davos, he'll go work in the European Union, he'll go work in the human rights area. He will cozy up to Europe quickly and get himself a job, whether that's as a lawyer or as a representative. It is CV padding on a grand scale.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it's a strong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, welcome back. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. That's the 3-minute rush to the toilet, which is in another road. Anyway, welcome back to the home of common sense. It's where working Brits and alarm clock Brits come to have their say. And you wake it up to the following news. Overnight, Donald Trump tearing Starmer another one. Yesterday, he told him the Chagos Islands was a sign of weakness. It made no sense financially. Overnight, he told Starmer to straighten out the UK. Deal with energy, stop the windmill, start drilling and deal with immigration. That's sort of what I want my Prime Minister to say. 24 hours ago, we discovered that this Chinese super embassy was going to be decided on in the Commons yesterday, despite, and look at the Mail, front page of the Mail, MI5 warning to kowtow Keir. Despite our security forces, despite many, many people saying this makes absolutely no sense, last night the Labour Party cleared this. In a minute, Ian Duncan Smith, former leader of the Conservative Party and an arch critic, quite rightly, of the Chinese, will be on this show. Firstly, though, good morning, Robert.
Morning, Jeremy. I've got a question. Why is it that Keir Starmer will get on a plane and go anywhere on the planet for any reason whatsoever, completely wasting our taxpayers' money, but the actual time we could do with him actually going somewhere, i.e. Davos, to try and sort something out there, get someone to make a decision, he sits at home. Absolutely spineless. What a clown.
I wish I could disagree with you, but I don't. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes, your text to 87222. Morning, Steve. Jez, super embassy a stone's throw away from Westminster. It surely won't be long before loads of Chinese officials, and I reckon there will be hundreds of them, will be walking around glad handling all our MPs, influencing government policies so that we become a satellite state. Joanna from Salisbury, could you please ask Ian Duncan Smith, why is there no way of stopping Keir Starmer destroying our country? Ian Duncan Smith, what a great start for you. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Morning, Jeremy. Hi.
How do we stop Keir Starmer destroying our country, says Joanna in Salisbury?
Well, the trouble is he was elected. He's got this staggering majority of one of the lowest polling positions for any incoming government. And he will be here for his term. Unless, of course, somebody in the Labour Party decides they've had enough and they want him out. And there's quite a lot of those at the moment, I can tell you, right now, when they talk to you as you go out the chamber of the House of Commons. They all moan and mutter about their Prime Minister, but my answer to that is, well, do something, because we don't have a chance to vote him out, unless we impeach him, of course, but that would be difficult, because he'd have to prove an absolute personal misdemeanour. But the reality is that's, I'm afraid, lying in the hands of the Labour Party, and he can't get anything through now because the Labour Party oppose all his stuff. The other day on the Hillsborough legislation, we all came in because there was going to be a vote, and we heard just as we walked through the door that they'd dropped the legislation. We were now on a one-line whip, which means there was no vote coming up, and that was all because 40 people in his own party had signed a letter. And I wish they would take an interest in the Chinese embassy. We had hardly any Labour MPs in the chamber yesterday with this terrible statement of the giveaway on the Chinese embassy, and at the same time we had a terrible statement on Chagos, where we were able to demonstrate that he has completely ignored the Chagosians and given this over to the Mauritians, who are no friends of ours and who have been doing great big arrangements with the Chinese.
Well,
and with the Russians.
let's start with that, because we were sat here yesterday sort of merrily going on our way, and that sort of nuclear statement on Truth Social about Starmer, which I thought was really interesting, because and absolutely right, because on Monday, of course, he'd seriously addressed the nation and talked about, you know, Donald Trump and Greenland and how it wasn't for the President of the United States, Ian, to make decisions. It was about Greenlanders. And then 24 hours later, Donald Trump says, but hold on a second, you've not only given away the Chagos Islands to a country, Mauritius, that's in the pocket of China, allowing all of their people to pay no income tax, but you've walked over any desire for the Chagosian people, you hypocrite. And that to me, summed it up perfectly about him as a person and this government.
Completely. I mean, two issues on the same day that demonstrate how little, I'm afraid, the Prime Minister cares about doing the things that are right. The embassy handover to China, the security services know full well this is a real problem for them. Extra 200 officials in the embassy, and they're going to spy and really make life hell for all those who have fled from Hong Kong after China trashed the Sino-British agreement. So he's ignored all of those, and I've had endless numbers of them, as well as other British citizens who got caught up in this terrible saga of China bullying. And then on the same day, the President then says, oh, well, the deal with Chagos is hopeless and it's not necessary, and he's right. But I wish he'd said this before. I mean, you're absolutely right. On one day you say it's for the Greenlanders to make their decision, and I agree, it's up to them if they want to come to an arrangement or not. But on the same time, when it came to Chagos, we have argued endlessly that the Chagosians, who were moved off the islands, wrongly in my view, but were moved off the islands to make way for the base and for other operations, should be allowed back to the islands. That's the way to solve this issue, and to let them have some form of self-government, because they want to stay British citizens by and large, and many of them hate the idea of being part of Mauritius, because Mauritians quite often look down their noses at the Chagosians. It's one of the biggest problems they have. They suffer quite a lot from Mauritians who don't really have a high regard for the Chagosians. So they were there last night when we did this debate in the gallery watching, and I felt it really broke my heart, because the government just wouldn't even mention the Chagosians in the course of the debate. You couldn't get them. You could, what about the Chagosians? They said, well, you know, they will have all their arrangements, and then they moved on. And of course they won't. And so it's what's, you know, sauce for the goose and for the gander doesn't happen for this government. As far as they're concerned, we stand by the those in the Greenland. But when it comes to Chagos, we don't stand by the Chagosians.
No, and I agree. I want to talk about the Chinese in a minute, but the Chagosian thing to me, absolutely what you've said. And I sort of highlighted, Ian, but by this sort of desire by Starmer and his acolytes like Hermer to appear on the world stage as these human rights greats who, apologise for stuff we've done in the past, rather than dealing ridiculously. You know, we'll pay reparations, we'll say sorry, we'll give you the land away, rather than actually doing what's needed, which is getting this bloody country fixed, which is what Trump said overnight. Let's bring it to an area that you are and have talked about repeatedly. MI5 warning to kowtow Kia. Simple question to you, IDS, right? This mega embassy, we know, right, will be nearby sensitive telecoms cables. We know that the government admitted yesterday with Dan Jarvis, the security minister, that the forecourt won't be for diplomatic immunity. They've acknowledged there are security issues. We've had problems with the Chinese in Parliament. The security services are saying that. Why in the name of God, Ian Duncan Smith, has Keir Starmer allowed this to happen? What's his motivation?
Well, the Labour Party in government is in a complete funk, because the economy is in a desperate state. Growth is not happening. We see that inflation's gone back up again. And they've got a Chancellor who can't add up, as far as I can see, and who never really held any position of financial importance in her life. So we've got this ridiculously dysfunctional process going on that's damaging the country. in the middle of this, he suddenly decided, oh, hang on a second, we can get our way out of this by doing a deal with China and a trade arrangement so that we can import all of their goods, essentially. And, of course, that's a disaster. But to do that, the Chinese have said, no deal until you give us the super mega embassy that we have paid money for, and they bought the site of the Royal Mint, which, is, by the way, is a historical site, which is appalling. But they bought that site, and they want to have their mega embassy. And they're going to put another 200 extra diplomats, and I use that word with inverted commas. And when we pressed them about what the actions would be, we said, everywhere China goes, when they bring in new diplomats, transnational repression, that is to say, attacking those who have fled China and those in Britain like me, and I'm sanctioned by the Chinese government. I've been sanctioned since 2020 because I've dared to criticize them. But all of that takes place on steroids once they bring extra people in. And finally, MI5, as you said, have been advising them, I believe privately, that there are these serious cable runs that go all the way from Canary Wharf through to the city and also into central London, used as well, I understand, although they won't openly admit it, by the security service themselves. And this property they've now bought puts them within literally touching distance of those cables. They're going to plan to dig deep down under the embassy site, which will put them right alongside, and they refuse to tell us what those rooms were going to be used for. We should have said no to this, but the government is so weak now that they give this to them, and MI5 has made it clear literally on the final day that they can't guarantee the security concerns that come out of this. And actually it's fascinating when you watch how they react to China. Do you know that China has been threatening us in Beijing? They've turned the water off to the British Embassy. They've turned the electrics off to the British Embassy. And they said to the British Embassy and to the Foreign Office, you're not going to get any help or support. You can't repair anything here without our permission, and we're not giving it until you give us the embassy. I mean, talk about getting threatened. We were once a great nation, and under Keir Starmer, we seem to have become a hollowed-out replica of what was once a great nation.
Can I ask you a direct question? Because you listen to the great way you've described that, and you come back, if you're me, and go, this makes no sense. Is Sir Keir Starmer in the pocket of China, in your opinion, Ian Duncan Smith?
Well, I think not in a criminal sense, but in a national sense, the answer is yes. The whole of his government are. They've been traipsing out to China on bended knee, as they call it in Chinese, kowtow, Project Kowtow, and it's embarrassing. And we're not going to get... I tell you what will happen is they get this trade arrangement too. All that will happen is Chinese will dump their overproduced batteries, electric cars, solar arrays, slab steel, because they have been overproducing now since their economy went off about 4 or 5 years ago. They're in difficulty domestically, but they've been subsidizing companies to carry on building these things because they want to keep the jobs. They've been looking for some idiot to come along and say, let's do a trade deal with you. And now we are the idiot that they can go, great, now we can dump all this stuff on Britain and rebadge it as British and sell it elsewhere. I mean, it's an absolute stupid idea. And those of us who know something about it have said to Keir Starmer and his government, you have let yourselves down. This is a disaster to have this Chinese embassy there. And at the same time, you have let the Chagosians down, who had high hopes of once again being returning to their country. And we have dismissed them. The government has dismissed them. And the worst bit, I keep saying this, I made a speech and I said this is a bad day for the House of Commons. We used to stand up for liberty, for freedom. And this day, the government won't even mention the name of the Chagosians and won't say why they've ignored their pleas to have their country back. That is an outrage.
Honestly, I've got a clip for you very quickly, just to sort of explain how I think this government doesn't know its backside from its elbow. This is David Lammy, you know, Calamitous Lammy, talking about Chagos in February last year, basically saying it won't go ahead if Trump doesn't like it. Have a watch, have a listen.
If President Trump doesn't like the deal will not go forward. And the reason for that is because we have a shared military and intelligence interest with the United States. And of course they've got to be happy with the deal or there is no deal.
Now, you said something to me, Ian Duncan Smith, which many people have said to me in the last 24 hours, and you've got a wealth of experience, I haven't, but I've got a theory. You said it's a shame that Donald Trump didn't come out earlier. Maybe I'm for the clouds. Maybe he kept it in his back pocket and knew that he would be able to use it with a Greenland situation. Maybe he's ahead of all of us, because he absolutely proved Starmer to be a hypocrite over the two subjects. I don't know, but that's perhaps some way to look at it as well. But even Lammy says, if Donald Trump doesn't want it, please God, it might not happen.
Well, we asked the... You wouldn't make this up. It's like one of those stupid bad comedy programs where everybody does a pratfall on a daily basis and the government's doing it all the time. We raised this with him and said, well, you know, the Deputy Prime Minister, because that's what David Lammy is, God help us, but the Deputy Prime Minister, and he said that exactly what you just put out there, that if America says no and doesn't like it, we don't move on it. Yet they rammed the vote through last night on the Chagos Islands. They rammed it through when we said, why don't you pause it? I said, OK, just pause it and find out for certain if the Americans are absolutely opposed to this, because that's what it sounds like. At least pause it, give the Chagosians some hope we might get a better deal. At least show decency. Don't try and railroad your majority through. And, you know, they wouldn't even answer that. They rammed it through last night with their MPs, most of whom, the vast majority, didn't come anywhere near the chamber of the House of Commons yesterday evening. I mean, it was, if only the cameras had panned onto them to show the British public, there were a tiny number, and those that came were the ones that were opposed to the embassy deal last night, and they weren't there for the Chagos debate either. And I was very sad about that, because we were the home of freedom and of free speech. And it looks to me like we've now become in a kind of mini dictatorship.
Listen, I could not agree any more with both of your comments on both Chagos and the embassy. And you sit here and you wonder if it's financial, if it's just lunacy, whether it's just no DNA, whether it's that displaced belief that you want to look good in the world. But the silent majority in this country, I mean, somebody told me yesterday, Ian, he has a lower approval rating than Maduro did in Venezuela 10 minutes before Trump nabbed him. That's not great. This is the most unpopular Prime Minister that we've ever had. Just a couple of things, because you always incite great response. Does IDS think this embassy could be stopped via judicial review, says Stephen Kent?
Ah, well informed. Yes, I do think so. And we've been supporting the residents. There are 200 residents that the government has just dismissed.
Yeah.
They now sit and will sit on Chinese territory. I mean, they don't care about the fact that the property was sold over their heads. It's unbelievable, and they want to do a judicial review. We've done a crowdfund. Absolutely, thank God for the British people.
Yeah.
You know, when all else goes wrong, the common sense of people out there reigns over the politicians. I can tell you this, that they have met their targets for crowdfunding in under 24 hours.
Brilliant.
God, I love the British people. They are so good, so generous, and they know a dummy when they see it.
They know right from wrong. Dear IDS, Labour has given... This is from Jan in Newcastle. Dear IDS, Labour has given Chagos to China, the embassy to China, steel contracts to China, and the list goes on and on. Do you, like me, worry that after 5 years of this, we'll literally become an annex of bloody China?
We are the worst country in the West now when it comes to China. At least in Europe, they are actually putting tariffs on Chinese goods. The one country that has not put tariffs on this whole problem of Chinese dumping has been the UK. We've raised this again and again, and they don't want to, because they're going on bended knee to China to say, please, please, President Xi, you, who have the worst record for executions, for forced organ harvesting, who've invaded the South China Seas, who threatens Taiwan on a daily basis, bully your way through. You make products using slave labor, you illegally subsidize products to make them cheaper in the world markets, and you are building up your armed forces to the point that they will now, the Navy will be bigger than the US Navy in the next year and a half, and you have said, once you're there, you're going to take Taiwan. Well, I have to tell you, the storm that will come from that will wipe out economies globally. But China, they don't care.
You're such a voice on this. There's a couple of things that aren't to do with China, a couple of texts, but I know that you'll answer them. Ian Duncan Smith is in my mind, says Mark in London, a wonderful man who stood up to the lunacy and money grabbing in his own party, namely Cameron Osborne. He's the only person to try and do something about the welfare bloating in this country. He's clearly a man of integrity and intelligence. When the hell is he going to transfer to Reform, the party that will be the next government?
It was all great until that last moment. As I said to somebody the other day, I'm too old and too long in politics to go shifting around. I believe what I believe. I will fight for my own principles. I will fight when I disagree with anybody, whether they be my party or somebody else. The only hope, I think, for Reform is that they align with me.
Do you were you upset with Robert Jenrick defecting?
Yes, I didn't. I still don't see why. I think Kemi, has been showing she has been holding Starmer to account.
Well, there's an opinion poll today saying she's leading Farage in personal ratings for the first time.
Yeah, she was. I saw she's leading all the leaders of all the parties. I think she will make a great prime minister. I generally do. I didn't vote for Jenrick when the time came because I genuinely didn't think that he would cut the mustard when it came to it, and I genuinely felt that she would. And I think I've been found right on that. She's really found her feet. So I'm not moving anywhere except when I go into the attack on China and on the government's terrible behaviour towards people that once looked to us for freedom, the Chagosians, and we've binned them.
Listen, mate, always an absolute pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate the time this morning. Ian Duncan Smith, former Tory leader and an absolute voice on the dreadful situation, this Chinese super embassy. He's so erudite on the subject. He says he just abandoned all of our principles. We're too weak. We need to show more. Time to cross basically live to Westminster now. Shadow Chancellor the Duchy of Lancaster, Alice Pergart. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
Yeah, morning. Thanks for having me on.
Look at that. That's dedication to the craft. Oh, look. I love the umbrella because, Alex, what you've done with that umbrella is you've shielded us from those idiots with those signs behind you, which is great news. I'm going to insist you all do the same. Welcome to the show.
Jeremy.
Oh, go away, these people. Alex, help me out here.
Self-employed, by the way.
Good. Go away. Stop talking to me. I'm talking to Alex Burkhardt. Alex, everybody with a brain cell, Ian Duncan Smith said the same, has been told that this super Chinese embassy acceptance is the most ludicrous decision ever. I'm guessing you were in the House last night. What do you, as part of the shadow cabinet, believe is the reason that Starmer and his cronies are allowing this to go past?
Look, this is a terrible mistake, and you've heard from the expert on this subject. Ian knows more about what's going on with the Chinese embassy than anyone and has been a real force in opposing it. And yeah, I was in the House last night, but unfortunately the government doesn't want to listen, it doesn't want to hear it. It's made up its mind that it's going to somehow buy favour with Beijing by putting this in place, and there are going to be real-world consequences to it. So I'm being fully supportive of what Ian's been doing. Kemi's been the same, and hopefully, as he says, there's a chance for local residents, very sensible local residents, to get a judicial review and put it on hold. But we're getting into the end game now.
It's interesting, David said to me, Jez, what is the point of having a security service in the UK if this Prime Minister and his commie government don't listen? I appreciate it's difficult for you with the noise behind Alex, but we're not going to bend to these people. I'll tell you what I'd like your response to as well, is the news that this morning in The Sun, Kemi Badenoch in the late, or Badenoch, whatever she wants to be called, the latest opinion poll shows that she is now more popular than Nigel Farage. Does that suggest to you that Kemi Badenoch's message is finally getting through, Alex Burkhardt?
Absolutely, and Kemi has enormous appeal, and I've seen that from the start. I worked on her leadership campaign. I'm been a friend of hers since we were elected at the same time. And actually, Ian, he was on before me, IDS. Remember him saying during the leadership contest, said, "I'm backing Kemi because she is the person in British politics with the most potential to help our country out of the situation it's in right now." Said, "I've seen a small number of great leaders in the past, and she has the potential to be a great leader." And the more she warms into this role, the more the British public see of her, the more I see that becoming true.
Are you concerned about any more defections, by the way? Last week, Robert Jenrick, also Andrew Rossendale. How is the party feeling about what took place there?
Look, it's always sad to lose colleagues, but I think it's very clear why what happened happened, and that's it's related to what you just asked me about. The truth is there is no vacancy at the top of the Conservative Party, and Rob, whatever his other qualities, which are real, is a very ambitious man, and he realised he wasn't going to be leader of the Conservative Party, so he switched to somebody else, and now I think he's going to be after Nigel's job, so it's their problem.
Final question, Alex, and I appreciate enormously what you're doing with those stupid people behind you. Shocking figures this morning showing that an extra 1.5 million people since Labour came to power are claiming universal credit. £4.2 billion, the most bloated welfare budget in the world. And this government gives, Mauritius 16 billion and can find money almost everywhere. This welfare budget is a disgrace and needs tackling, isn't it?
Absolutely, in every way, and that's what a Conservative government will do. I mean, look, what the Labour government is doing is reminding the whole country that left-wing economics just don't work. Unemployment is going up, inflation is up again today. They are borrowing billions and billions of pounds of your listeners' money every day in order to keep their idiotic economic plans in place, and that's why we're going to need Conservative economics just as the country needed them in the 1980s to sort things out. And I know that Kemi will be the right person to do.
Alex, thank you, my friend. I'm going to come round there soon and bash their signs up myself, but we appreciate your attempts there at being heard, and thank you for coming on. Alex Burkhardt MP, and those three people who apparently are self-employed, not unemployed. Their businesses can't be going too well if you're more interested in standing on Victoria Gardens Green spouting crap. Let Alex Burkhardt and the people who are good enough to represent us have their say. 0344 499 1000. Thomas Godfrey from The Sun on the way. Firstly, good morning, Sharon.
Morning, Jez. Good show, but this guy, to me, seems to be off his rocker. He needs something sorting but all he's doing now is he can ruin the country. People that I've dealt with, they just ruin their own lives, but this guy is ruining the country, and not just for our generation, but for the next generation. He's signing us up to things that really, really are going to make our country worse in the future, and he's been told this constantly, but he's not listening, and that to me is a mental health problem. He needs to be sectioned. Good show, Sharon from Yorkshire.
Labour strikes you as the kind of people who are trying to undo anything empire-ish about it, which is actually brings us back to the Greenland thing. So whilst Donald Trump is definitely right about the Chagos Islands, because it's just a bad idea, people who are military experts are writing in all the newspapers saying this is bad for security. Lovely. The reason to do it was because of some international law that was entirely ignorable. You give me a law that I could ignore, I'm ignoring it. I don't know why they felt the need to absolutely stick to it. But it is entirely possible for two things to be true at the same time or wrong at the same time.
Okay. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This Talk.
Welcome back. Right on 8:30, it's Wednesday, January the 21st. You're with Talks, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock. Brits, JK till 10 ahead of Julia. So much in the news today, and Starmer getting a pummeling again. You're waking up to the news that DT, Donald Trump, overnight said to Starmer, well, basically, straighten out the UK, sort out immigration, drill, make some money, and stop being such a over the Chagos Islands, which I think everybody agrees. And then, of course, add into that what Ian Duncan-Smith was saying, this absolutely ridiculous decision yesterday by the government to allow the Chinese super embassy, despite our own security forces saying this is a danger. And I would say the view of the public about Keir Starmer is not great. Jacqueline in Liverpool, whilst it's terrible what's happening to the Chagosians, I am more concerned as to what's happening to my once great city and how we'll be taken over by communists and having our country sold off. Couldn't agree more. David, hi Jez, under Keir Starmer the UK is like the Titanic, God bloody help us. I love this from Deborah. Starmer is not going to Davos because the two people who will show up there, Trump and Farage, he's terrified of them. Also, he wants to suck up to China, probably. Morning, John.
Morning, Jez. John here from Derbyshire. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm really not, but I'm starting to now think with Starmer, Chinese embassy, giving the Chagos away, they're not even decisions are remotely sensible. The decisions that damage the UK, even the advisors at MI6 and MI5 say they damage the UK. So the guy, to me, is intentionally damaging his own country. Very dangerous, got to go as soon as possible.
And all I want to know from that voice note is what the hell was going on in the background. Was the wife shouting at him? Did he have another station on? Is it me that actually sounds like that? And delay, I've no idea. 0344 499 1000. Let's cross and say good morning. Excellent, excellent man he is next. The Sun columnist Thomas Godfrey. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Thanks for joining me. Great. You're doing it twofold. One, you're standing in for that lazy git Harry Cole, who's asleep in Washington, D.C. I mean, if he cared about the job, we'd be up. But he's written a great page 10 today in The Sun, all about this Chagos debacle, headlining, Trump has decided Chagos Islands deal and Keir are duds. Let's just cross back overnight to Washington. Harry asked the president himself a question. Let's have a watch. Let's have a listen.
To hand the base of Diego Garcia over to Mauritius and then rent it back was an act of great stupidity. Previously, you've backed that deal. Is it now your position that the deal should not go ahead?
I think that they, when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
Thomas, I'm reading Harry's article. I know you want to talk about something as well on Saturday, but we start with this, right? Maybe I'm mad. Hear me out. You're a journalist, I'm not. Opposition politicians, says Harry, have been begging Donald Trump to speak out against the curious deal that will see Britain surrender yet another overseas territory. Do you think we're maybe missing the point and not giving credit to the Donald? Maybe he kept it in his back pocket so he could completely prove that Starmer is a hypocrite when he wanted something like Greenland, because I still maintain yesterday, when it went viral, when it went nuclear in the middle of this show, when he put out that Truth Social thing, and basically what it said was, you're going to lecture us about Greenlanders should make up an excuse, should make a decision, and yet you didn't do that to Chagosians. I just wonder whether he's more clever, Thomas, than we all give him credit for. Maybe I'm wrong.
Very possibly, but also we're paying to give away the Chagos Islands rather incredibly. It's not a simple handover deal. It seems the Americans, and especially the important American in the White House, has finally caught up with some of the baffled feelings that many people in this country have had in regards to us giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. And as a reminder, Mauritius have never owned the Chagos Islands. They are hundreds of miles away from the Chagos Islands. They have absolutely no real claim to the Chagos Islands other than they're just the next nearest civilization. Lord Hermod, the Attorney General, had always worried that the UK would be humiliated in some sort of international court. We know there's some pretty high-profile British lawyers advising Mauritius, especially on the matters involving the Chagos Islands. But Mauritius doesn't have a standing army, so who in the blue hell would have enforced any international court decision on the UK to hand over the islands. And as Donald Trump says yesterday, it seems we've launched ourselves into this process, leasing a vital military asset back and paying to give away our territory for, as he says, absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Well, you know that Starmer and his weird cronies like Hermer would see it, as I said this earlier to Ian Duncan Smith, would see it as, you know, as human rights lawyers, we're doing the right thing, we're apologising for Britain getting land in the first place and blah, blah, blah. But you know when, and you know this because you do such great investigative work for The Sun, the people of this country are really struggling. Council tax, energy, food, everything's going through the roof. And they look at this and go, I think there's a figure out, Thomas, that the entire deal for Chagos is about 35 billion quid, which is a third of our national debt that costs us 10 billion a month to pay our interest on. So if you were a sort of intelligent person, you'd go, I'm not going to do that and I'm going to cut that off my debt so that the people of my country are better off. And that's why people are so angry with Starmer. I've never seen anger like this because people are going, they're almost past it's unfair. And they've got to the point where they're saying, are you deliberately trying to sabotage not only our country, domestically and internationally, but the very people and shake our belief that we should live our lives correctly almost? Do you know what I mean?
I think people genuinely feel they're being screwed over. You know, they're being attacked from every side. I mean, 35 billion, it's a massive number, but just to put into perspective exactly how much it is, I mean, it's about 7 years of asylum support for the entire asylum system for 7 years. You could run that. You could, you know, renationalise every railway, renationalise every public utility if you wanted to with that money. I mean, it's a staggeringly huge amount of money, 35 billion. The sort of money that, you know, you or I, Jeremy, probably not able to comprehend, really, to have it personally. Well, but it seems for the government, they're willing to just throw that away willy-nilly on a sort of virtue signalling posturing trip in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It brings no real benefit for our country. And it's something that the former Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, last year had said when the US sort of waved this deal through, although it's now coming under re-examination. But when David Lammy sort of got the big international success of the blessing of Donald Trump for this Chagos deal, he made it really clear. He said, if Donald Trump doesn't like the deal, it doesn't happen. We'll please God that it's the only thing that's come out of Lammy's mouth that's truthful. Very quickly, really good of you to be on for Harry. Great piece coming up on Saturday you're working on. Facial recognition leading to more arrests. Tell me more briefly. Yeah, so the Met Police have these static facial recognition cameras that are first of their kind. It's an £800,000 scheme. And they're trialling them in Croydon. And what we have now is on Croydon High Street, fixed cameras at either end. If you are a wanted criminal, if you're wanted by the courts, you've absconded, you're wanted on recall, those cameras incredibly will pick your face out of the crowd and the police will swiftly be along to arrest you. Now, obviously, some people feel quite nervous about this. They don't want to be on camera at all, understandably so. The way the police is selling it to communities is that in the absolute majority of circumstances, your photo will be deleted as soon as you walk through the camera if it doesn't trigger a ping on their system. So if you're not a criminal, you don't have anything to worry about. In the brief time we were there with the police, we saw them make 4 or 5 arrests in about 45 minutes. They've made a dozen before we arrived. And those are people who, if they were wanted on burglary charges, may well have gone and burgled the house later that afternoon. Someone they arrested was actually wanted for kidnap. Which just shows that the length and breadth of the offences that people can be out wandering the street having been involved in. So this trial, £800,000 it's costing. There are talks ongoing between the Met and other police forces to roll this out across the rest of the country in other areas where they may be easy to do so. So it's a fascinating thing to see in action. Obviously, there will be reservations. The police have to get it right. Because it only takes a few false positives, and I'm told they're exceedingly rare, but it only takes a few false positives for people to say, well, actually, I'm not a criminal. I've genuinely done nothing wrong. I don't want to be getting stopped by the police. And
actually, where you're right, Thomas, is some people will say, oh, it's become a nanny state. This is outrageous. Others will say this is a very good thing. From me, I mean, look, it's The Sun on Sunday, I should say, not Saturday. Police arresting 100 people on one street in Croydon using facial recognition with Thomas. But there's two things. You know, the one thing, I think that you deal with criminals by putting more policemen and women on the streets and getting local intel. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but wouldn't it be great if we could get a facial recognition camera that spotted illegal migrants, and then we could clear up another mess that this country's in. Thomas Godfrey from The Sun, thank you so much indeed. Top man, 20 to 9. We're live across the UK. In a tick, more about the Chagos Islands deal with a former Minister for the Foreign Office, Lord Tariq Ahmed, is with us very soon. Hayden doesn't think too highly of Sir Dreary Starmer.
Morning, Jez. It's Hayden in Grimsby. And the problem you've got with Starmer and his government is the damage they're doing. It's going to be a massive thing for the next government to take on. It'll probably end up with being in austerity again, and they'll be in the back lines going, we could have done better, we could have done better. What an absolute load of rubbish. Also, if the King's got anything about him, he should get rid of this government. It's his country, it's being affected. You'd think he'd want to get involved. Thanks, mate. Keep up the good work.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 18 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Julia here from 9. Ian Collins sounding great in the afternoon from 1 o'clock. JK on breakfast until 10. Much of the debate today, if you're waking up or tuning in, is about, well, Starmer. There's been ripped another one by Donald Trump overnight. Yesterday, put him in his place about the Chagos Islands overnight. He said that Starmer should concentrate on straightening out Britain, dealing with energy crises and immigration crises. Hear, hear. This, of course, is the morning after he and his acolyte, Starmer, passed this super embassy clearance in London. The biggest super embassy in Western Europe has been given the go-ahead for the Chinese, despite the fact that it's nearby sensitive telecoms cables, and even our own security services, MI5, told our Prime Minister don't do it. But no, Starmer goes ahead, cozying up to China, giving away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, which is close to China. Is it about trade? Is he in their pocket? We have no idea. I'll tell you, we've got next is a gentleman who was a key figure in representing the UK government in discussions regarding the future of the Chagos Islands. We say a very good morning to Lord Tariq Ahmed, former Minister in the Foreign Office. Tariq, a very good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy. I'm very well, thank you.
Can you clear something up for me? You were part of the Tory Foreign Office and you were involved in discussions. I asked Matt Vickers this, and I think it's something that people want to hear from a Tory, because many people saying yesterday, Tariq, well, hold on a minute. Yes, Starmer's cozying up to China, but the conversations were started with the Tory government. So did your government at that time, like Labour, have the intention of giving away the Chagos Islands, or were these conversations that started because somebody came to your government? What's the truth to that, Tariq?
Right, just a bit of historical context, first of all. That famous advisory opinion, I was one of those ministers who had the joy of reading it. But the key word there, back in 2019, was advisory. Boris was our Foreign Secretary. And we concluded at that time this wasn't legally binding. So all this issue about courts, etc. Yes, it was from the International Court of Justice, which is the legal arm of the UN, but it wasn't specific in binding us to a decision. There was subsequently a vote at the General Assembly, which we lost, again, not legally binding. So we came to the conclusion, and yes, of course, Mauritius is a member of the Commonwealth. We had various discussions. I myself met with the Prime Minister of the then Prime Minister, Pravin Chung. Pravin was someone I got to know quite well. But we came to the conclusion that at no time was the security issue, which for us in Britain, as the government of our country, was the key component, and that the security issues during all the bilateral discussions on various issues that we had could not be satisfied. And I think the deal we have now in front of us actually defeats the whole purpose of security. The pressure came from the UN about the rights of the Chagossians, but as you would, I'm sure, and many of your viewers as listeners would have seen, that the debates we've had has actually not even addressed that particular issue. So in short, yes, of course, we had discussions with Mauritius. There were several rounds, and we've been accused both in the Commons and the Lords, oh, well, the Tories initiated this. But I put it to you, Jeremy, you know, I was in business before government. The amount of times you enter a negotiation, and the fact there were 11 and we didn't conclude them, what does it say?
No, I get that, and that's what Matt said. But
central issue of security.
No, Tariq, I agree, and that's what Matt Vickers said earlier. But what I want in layperson's terms, just notice how politically correct I'm becoming. I don't say layman's anymore. What I want to know is what was the motivation, even if it didn't pan out. We can criticise where we're at today, big style.
Sure.
But what was the motivation for even beginning those discussions in layman's terms? What was it? What were we to get from giving away sovereign land and, in effect, and I know what you've said, as it's turned out, completely ignoring the Chagossians and giving money to a nation that's in China's pocket? And basically, and here's what really riles people up, Tariq, the Mauritian people are not paying income tax for 12 months. They're debt-free as a country because we've suddenly found 16 billion quid, whilst this country, with respect, is 120 billion in debt and is paying interest every month. So to your average Mr. and Mrs. in the street, they don't understand this at all. So why did it even start, that conversation?
The reason these conversations happened, there was as I said, this advisory opinion back in 2019. We're a member of the United Nations, we're a P5 member, and of course, when an ICJ, albeit on an advisory opinion, gives a particular opinion or decision, the United Kingdom has to respond to that. And of course, we did this in good faith, that we talked to the Mauritians. For example, there has been a lot of discussion, I'm sure you followed it, on marine protection areas. You know, we've been administering marine protection area, particularly in our overseas territories. And it's a big win for the UK. We've protected wildlife, we've protected fishing rights. And there was this sense that with the Chagossians, could we initiate, for example, a program of visits so they could go to their ancestral homes, not to get Diego Garcia specifically, but other islands. And we also did a report, we were responsible, that actually demonstrated that the islands themselves were inhabitable. You know, you couldn't live there, that the nature of the islands is such that they're not conducive to people returning and living there as well. And we also worked with the Chagossians. I remember when I was the OT's minister till about 2019, when Boris was Foreign Secretary as well, from 2017 to 2019. We met with the Chagossians, Boris met with the Chagossians, and there were very few who wanted those rights of return. But what they did want, Jeremy, was the right to exercise some kind of vote which would allow them to express their opinion. And the current deal fails to do that. But in answer directly to your question, of course, Mauritius, you know, we have friendly relations with Mauritius. Of course, Mauritius is a member of the Commonwealth of Nations. And of course, we engage. For them, Jugnauth, the senior, I talked about Pravin Jugnauth, his father, this was his legacy issue. But we should also remember, historically, the Chagossians were never part of Mauritius. So when we looked at the facts, our response was very clear. This isn't legally binding.
No.
There were subsequent decisions, and I'm sorry to bore your viewers with some of the technical...
No, you're making the point. The UN put pressure, and you're making the point.
UNCLOS, the UN Convention on the Law of Seas. There was a dispute between the Maldives and Mauritius, and that was thrown at us to say, oh, look, here's another legal decision. But anyone knows the workings of that UNCLOS is between the two bilateral nations who have brought that dispute. So it's not, again, legally binding. And just to clear this thing, there was this threat of the courts. Let me just spell that out. The International Court of Justice is an organ of the United Nations. If it even got to the extent there was a dispute directly and we were taken through the courts for the implementation of that decision, where does it lie? It lies at the UN Security Council as the enforcer of a resolution or a decision. And guess what? As a P5 member, we've got a veto on it. So my view was very clear, and that was consistent And indeed, when David Cameron, this has also been talked about, from Prime Minister to when he returned as Foreign Secretary. I always say I had the joy of seeing 6 Foreign Secretaries, 5 Prime Ministers, so there is a bit of continuity on my part. But he was very clear to me that this was not something we would do, because from a UK perspective, respecting the Chagosians' view, but from our perspective, did it meet our security needs? Would it protect our interests in the Indian Ocean? And let's not forget, with the operations in the South China Sea, key allies such as Australia, we need this base. My view was very clear. We have a sovereign base agreement in Cyprus. That's been operational since 1960. It's worked well. It respects the rights of the Cypriots, but at the same time, we've operated those bases for use of our security interests. And this deal, 99, and putting it quite simply, you know, I was explaining it, my own kids, I've got 3 children, the youngest is only 11, and he was saying, Daddy, what's this all about? And I said, it's a bit like you've got a property which you own, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to give it away on leasehold. And not only that, I'm then going to pay for that. And I've got
to jump in. It makes. I've got to jump in, and I don't mean that badly, because it is great, Terry, to have you on. And I completely agree with you. It makes no sense, and you won't sell this to the British people. Yes, the Chagosians aren't asked. Yes, there are concerns now about Mauritius. The money is massively important. I think the whole deal is 35 billion quid. It makes no sense. All roads lead back to the United Nations in what you've been saying, and I don't disbelieve anything. This is not ratified yet. Lammy said in February, we have to be really brief here. Lammy said in February, if Trump doesn't like the deal, it won't happen. Trump came out and skewered Starmer on this. I believe this is Starmer and Hermer trying to look big in the, you know, the world of human rights lawyers. I think it makes us look ludicrous. Can this treaty, in your mind, very briefly, this bill, be cancelled in the future as it hasn't been ratified? Yes or no?
It's a political decision, Jeremy, and I'm very clear that the position we've seen from President Trump now is the position I expected when he first came to power. We dealt with Trump 1. Ultimately, it's for the government. They can talk about international law. Yes, it requires ratification. The Lords batted back to try and strengthen this. I was watching the votes in the Commons last night. They rejected because of the massive Labour majority. This will come back to us. We'll have that ping pong. Ultimately, there'll be arguments over the elected chambers' view must prevail. But ultimately, what it comes down, as a government, I was in government for 12 years. Does this meet the security interests of the United Kingdom, not just for today and tomorrow, but for generations to come? Labour argue it does. My view is very clear. Someone who looked at this very closely, it does not. We have a good deal. We can go down the sovereign base area with Mauritius, and circumstances change, even if we accept that everything was fine until this point. If circumstances change today, we should make a decision based on what's important in the security interests of the United Kingdom today.
Lord Tariq Ahmed, very, very good to have you on, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll catch up very soon. Former Foreign Affairs Minister under 6 Prime Ministers and 5 Foreign Secretaries, or maybe around the other way, talking about the Chagos Islands. Loads to come this morning. Annabelle Denham from 9. Fee, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Fee from Berkshire here. Great show, by the way. Just thought I'd do a little impression of my view of Keir Starmer when he's not on the screen. He'll stick his fingers in his ears, and this is his mantra. La 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 la, not listening, la 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 la, screw you, la 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 la.
That they're ramping up deportations, that they're serious about getting rid of foreign criminals and those that have failed to win the right to remain in our country. A pretty small group, as you said anyway, Kev. But then when you actually look at what's really going on, you find that there is a supermax detention facility, all built with a state-of-the-art bells and whistles at a cost of £70 million to the taxpayer.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 4 minutes to 9, Annabelle Denham in the next hour. We'll talk all things about Trump. We'll talk to Rupert Bell. Meghan Markle's been cancelled by Netflix. God, the world's a happy place. And Lucy Letby, the story won't go away. We've got an exclusive with Mark MacDonald, the barrister for Lucy Letby. That is a story that will not go away. Let's push the buttons, do some sport, Beckham.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From the Sun.
Dan King, a very good morning. Are you a Chelsea fan?
I'm not, no.
Who do you support? Who do you support?
I should be there tonight covering the game.
Who do you support?
We're not going there again, Jeremy. I can't tell you. I've got to remain objective, otherwise I'll get dogs abuse. You know that.
Isn't football funny? Back at the brilliant Sun today, Sun Sport, first place I go to for sport. It was Frank, Thomas Frank's a goner. It's all over. He wins one game in the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund last night. Free-flowing football, wins 2-0. Everybody's fine. Is he hanging on, or is that a corner turned, in your opinion, Dan?
Well, it could be a corner turn, albeit, it was against a 10-man Borussia Dortmund. But the fact is, it looks like Spurs are going to go through, possibly without even having with a playoff, to the knockout stage of the Champions League. And I think it's quite hard to sack a manager who's taken you there. Now, obviously, they had the thing last year where they banked everything on European competition, won the Europa League to get into the Champions League, and then sacked the manager anyway. So there's a precedent for that. The league form has got to improve if they want to get back in the Champions League next year, or even into Europe. But I think it's very hard to sack him now, and having spent some more money in the transfer window as well. I think you've got to give him time to get things right. I know people like my good friend Andy, Spurs fans, have been incredibly depressed. They're watching Arsenal run away with the league, and everything's been going wrong. But this is the sort of result which can turn seasons. But as you say, at the weekend they could lose again, and it'll be woe is me.
I wish we had more time, but I always get wound up about, when clubs say we've got a project. Why don't they just admit that you can have a project and you can invest and have a plan and bring in all these different levels? But the fact of the matter is, if you lose 4 or 5 games, the fans turn on you, the pressure goes onto the board and the owners, and people lose their jobs. The Amarin thing went on for 14 months, never thought it was the right thing. Hope he gets a bit more time. Here's the man who gets time all the time, Pep Guardiola. Manchester City hammered by is it a sort of local amateur team, Bodo Glimt or something last night, the Champions League. What's happening to them?
Well, they're a fantastic story, which we can't go into now, Jeremy. But Bodo Glimt are a team from the Arctic Circle who have broken the stranglehold that other teams from the south of Norway have had over the league, and they're a very, very well-run team. And I think someone on social media was pointing out the cost of their entire team is less than the Manchester City left back. So it's not a question of spending money. You talk about Guardiola getting time. It's no coincidence that Mikel Arteta is going to lead Arsenal to the league in all likelihood, and that's because he's been given time to get it right. Guardiola has earned the time to get things right because he keeps winning stuff. And I think changing managers, as we've seen at Manchester United, doesn't work. So in terms of projects, if you're getting pressure from the fans after 4 to 5 games, if you're a director or a board member, that's when you've got to show some cojones. You've got to say, no, we actually believe in this project. We're going to keep going. And only when it becomes completely untenable, as it did with Amarim, where he talked himself out of a job, only then do you act.
Dan, you're a legend. Chelsea and Liverpool in the Champions League tonight. All of the details of that and everything else in the brilliant Sun Sport. Dan King, thank you very much indeed. And we'll head to the news at 9, and Annabelle Denham on the way. What do you want to ask her? 87222. Start your message with the word talk.
We reject!
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No depression at borders! We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly, you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Welcome to Talk Breakfast at the home of common sense, the home of working class and working Brits and alarm clock Brits. People who just get up and do their bit, really, and are wondering as to the fairness of a government and a country that seems to pander to almost everybody else. The main news stories today: Donald Trump, fresh from telling Keir Starmer that the Chagos deal was hypocrisy at its worst and financially ludicrous, overnight tore into the United Kingdom again, and Starmer by basically saying, well, actually, let's watch it because I love this. He's basically saying all the things we all care about: immigration, windmills. Take it away, DT. Maybe. Take it away.
I get along very well with them. I mean, they always treat me well. They get a little bit rough when they're, when I'm not around. But when I'm around, they treat me very nicely. And, I like both of them. They're both liberal. They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems: immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries, and it would be good. But I get along very well.
I could not agree with him anymore. So we've got Starmer on the ropes over Chagos. He's also on the ropes over his ludicrous decision yesterday to clear the super embassy. MI5, our own security services, look at that, warning to kowtow Keir. Don't do it. But no. The man who wants to cozy up to China goes ahead with this ridiculous decision. You're also waking up to news that now, under Labour, an extra 1.5 million people are claiming universal credit. That makes 4.2 million. And yes, there are plenty who deserve and are justified in being supported by all of us. However, let's get real. It's 2026. There are feckless, lazy people being paid money for doing bugger all, and all of us who pay tax are increasingly frustrated. Good morning to Phil. How are you, Phil?
Good morning, Jeremy. Phil here. I think the reason Starmer is not going to Davos is because he has been totally humiliated by Trump. He is now a laughingstock. This coalition of the willing won't admit it, But behind closed doors, I bet they're having a right old cackle. He's a laughing stock.
Even the name's a laughing stock. The Coalition of the Willing. Hello to Matt in Saddleworth. Jez, no one's defending this lot, and no wonder. Starmer's government feels like communists quietly gutting my country. Chagos handover, giving sovereignty to Mauritius, leasing back Diego Garcia for billions. Trump's called it great stupidity that'll help China and Russia. Then there's China's monster mega embassy approved in central London despite massive spying fears. Mass immigration swamping services, net zero wrecking energy security, sneaky EU creeping. It's all chipping away at this country's sovereignty. Is it incompetence or is it deliberate? Let's put that to our next guest, Deputy Comment Editor at the Daily Telegraph, Annabelle Denham. A very good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm good, my darling. Incompetence or deliberate sabotage by this government? On a daily basis, my mouth drops further open, Annabelle.
I'm almost done trying to rationalise what it is that Keir Starmer is trying to achieve. You know, he's got this whopping majority and absolutely no direction, no agenda, no seemingly guiding philosophy. You know, this is somebody who, before he came into power, was a self-professed socialist. And you almost think, you know, at least if he was pursuing some more radical left-wing agenda, you would understand what it is that he stands for. He keeps telling us that he's acting in the British national interest, and yet he also keeps surrendering major strategic assets, you know, refusing to call China an adversary, let alone an enemy. And, you know, he's obviously determined to retain his position as a bridge between America and Europe. But you have to wonder for how much longer he's going to be able to walk that diplomatic tightrope. So if that's the sort of international position, well, domestically, it's even worse. We've just had the inflation data. It's gone up. So it's almost reaching double the Bank of England's target. You've got a huge number of people now who are receiving universal credit. Unemployment is up, employment is down. All of the economic data points are worsening. And you just ultimately wonder how much more our position is going to be able to deteriorate in the 3.5 years that this Labour government's got left.
You know, it's interesting, isn't it, when you chew the fat and you think to yourself, how, you said it, you're almost out of superlatives. I come in here genuinely every day and I hope and want to do a show that isn't based around his incompetence. But you look at what Trump said overnight, you look at the Chagos Islands, and we found a clip from the then Foreign Secretary David Lammy back in February, Annabelle. Listen to the, because this Chagos deal that Starmer's pinned his hopes on, listen to what his Foreign Secretary said in February.
If President Trump doesn't like the deal will not go forward. And the reason for that is because
it's going really well.
If President Trump doesn't like the deal will not go forward. And the reason for that is because we have a shared military and intelligence interest with the United States. And of course they've got to be happy with the deal or there is no deal.
Right, eventually it did play. So Lammy, as Foreign Secretary in February, Annabelle, saying the deal won't happen. And you wonder, I mean, as I said to many people this morning, being on air yesterday and that sort of dropping, and then realising what Simon Danczuk said to me, which is the sheer hypocrisy of Starmer on the one hand saying, you can't march into Greenland, Greenlanders should decide, but she didn't give the Chagosians a heartbeat. And more importantly to our viewers and listeners, apart from the sovereignty issue, trying to look good on the international stage as what, some sort of human rights guru, 34.7 billion quid when we're trillions in debt. Ludicrous, financially, morally, in every way. And you sort of think that now Trump's got involved and you look at Lammy, it's not going to happen, is it, Annabelle? Another U-turn on the cards, 100%.
I think it will depend on how the Parliamentary Labour Party respond to this, Jeremy, because they will not like the idea that the Prime Minister, this Labour government, is being bounced into a U-turn because of the US President. Let's not forget that many members of the Labour Party have been very vocal in their condemnation, vitriolic in their condemnation of Donald Trump. So, you know, let's just see over the next few days how it plays out. And in any case, I think we've got some other Starmer U-turns taking place before then. Labour last year, I think, were a bit like the cat who got the cream when it came to Chagos, because it did seem to have the short-term superficial support of the Trump administration. Figures like Marco Rubio coming out and lending their support to it. But it was always quite clear that Trump simply wasn't across the details of this deal.
Do you think it was that, or do you think he was?
Hours.
Do you think it was detail? I know you're gonna say Jets. Don't be so wide-eyed. Do you not think he's that intelligent that he might have kept it in his back pocket for a situation like Greenland and has played everybody like a good one, Annabelle Denham?
Well, my feeling is that it just hadn't really got into his in tray properly, and I suspect that Nigel Farage actually has helped raise the salience of the Chagos issue with the US president as well behind the scenes. What we can be pretty confident of now, Jeremy, is that the US president is going to stand firm with his current position, because not only did we have that explosive Truth Social post accusing us of great stupidity yesterday, but he has also gone on the airwaves to explain his shift in position. And of course, he's absolutely right. There's zero justification for this. And what's awkward for Keir Starmer is that he has previously justified the Chagos surrender on grounds that it had the support of our allies. Well, now that America is very vocally opposed, this is one of our key allies, if not our most important ally, are we going to see the Prime Minister, at the very least, he's going to have to try to find a way to keep both sides on board.
But you see, that for me,
very difficult for him.
That for me is the reason that he is so impotent and incompetent. I do not defend Donald Trump in everything, but I get the distinct feeling that the way to deal with Donald Trump is to stand up to him and have a belief and stick to it. Even if he would spend a lifetime disagreeing with you, you'd garner more respect from him. The problem with Starmer from the very beginning, I think through the election and through the 18 months of debacle, is he's tried to be, Annabelle, all things to all people. And even when he was standing up, and the Greenland thing was a chance to say, I'm not doing this, America, you can be my ally, but this is not happening. No, we must sit down behind closed doors and have lots of discussions. I don't think he's a strong enough person. And I remember during the election thinking, you've made it such an open church for everybody to join Labour that I think you're going to spend most of your time not trying to rob Peter to pay Paul, but you know what I mean, trying to appease everybody. And that's what I see with this man. I don't care if I disagree with him. I'd like him to stick to something. Let's talk about the super Chinese embassy. I mean, what Prime Minister in your experience would ignore your own security services and say, no, I'm going to go ahead and build the biggest super embassy for China in Western Europe? We have complete fears, admitted by their Security Minister Dan Jarvis yesterday, that it could be a liability. There's going to be 200 extra super employees, diplomats. We've already got complete proof. Ian Duncan Smith made the point earlier that spying has happened and is very prevalent. Why would he allow this to happen? Another question. It's almost self-defeating, Annabelle.
Well, it is. I think there are two intertwined issues, really. The first, Jeremy, as we've discussed earlier, is the state of the UK economy, and the idea that we might get some investment from China, some FDI from Beijing, is appealing to a Labour government which has none of the answers to all that ails Britain economically, and is scrambling around for ideas. And the second is, we have China generating our electricity. We have it's acquired a stake in a nuclear power station here. Of course, we've got universities with very high proportion of Chinese students. So in many ways, we're so entangled with China, and this is very difficult to reverse. Now, this goes back to the Cameron-Osborne era and, this sort of golden era of relations that we were supposed to have with Beijing in the aftermath of Xi Jinping assuming supreme office in 2012. But over the years, as Ian Duncan Smith has said very robustly, we have become increasingly naive and almost in denial about the scale of espionage and things like the bounties on the head of UK-based Hong Kongers here. And wouldn't it be nice if we were able to take a more strong, robust position on China. But when are unable to do so, now part of this is because of our obsession with net zero, which makes us even more reliant on China for the components that are required, things like solar panels, all the while, of course, China belching out huge amounts of pollution, carbon into the atmosphere. So I think that, we're very dependent on them for net zero, we're very dependent on them for our, economic, well, we seem to think that we're dependent on them for our economic growth, even though they do make up quite a small percentage of overall UK exports. And the timing is interesting because Starmer is due to make a trip to Beijing early this year, the first prime minister to do so since 2018. And I wonder how that will be received in Washington, not least after you've had the Chinese super embassy approved, which Donald Trump will not be happy with.
I was going to ask you.
Ally of China.
I was going to ask you because I asked Ian Duncan Smith a very direct question with a very direct answer. I said to him, "Do you believe that we now viewed as being in China's pocket if you're Keir Starmer?" And he went, "Yes." What do you think?
Well, I mean, it certainly appears to be that way. We had the refusal, as I say, to describe China as an enemy. We, are refusing to decouple from China to try and ensure that we are not so economically dependent on them. Look, we're not quite a Chinese vassal state yet, but the Labour government needs to wake up to the threat that this country quite clearly poses to us. And at the moment, we've just got politicians who want to stick their heads in the sand because they think that this is an easy way for them to duck some of the more difficult questions around, our behaviour over the last decade or so, the difficulties of disentangling ourselves from China and trying to get some sort of economic growth. But for how much longer is this going to go on? Because China, for well over a decade now, has made very clear that it is not some benign status quo power like a sort of giant Singapore that's focused on being rich rather than dominating the world, but rather, it wants to have enormous influence over Europe. Look at its closening relationship with Vladimir Putin. We've got to be honest about the axis of authoritarianism that is consolidating, and not only on an economic front, but also on a defence front. How many times, Jeremy, must you have heard Conservative politicians come on your show and say that we must increase defence spending? Well, we still don't know when we're going to have a commitment and a date for getting to just 3%.
I get very cynical with the Tories that say that, and I lay this. I could go for Starmer. Let's talk about 14 years. It started before May. They've done it with the police and they did it with the armed forces. They ridiculously believed there was no threat. They have looked at defence as an easy cut. There are less people. This sounds like a headline, Annabelle. I want to move to something in a sec, but this is true. There are less people in our armed forces than illegal migrants have come into this country in the last 18 months. We're an island. It's a disgrace. Rishi Sunak, 2 days after the election, went 2.5%. What about the last 14 years? No, I'm a sham. I think it's disgraceful. Front page of your wonderful newspaper. Yes, fix your country. Trump tells Starmer. The other one I want to pick up on, you're the perfect lady for this because it's a very, very contentious story. We're going to speak this hour to Lucy Letby's lawyer, Mark McDonald, the killer nurse who yesterday found that she'll face no new criminal charges into the deaths of 2 more babies. Now, front of the Telegraph, MPs demand review of her convictions as cases are closed. We have to be careful, and we have to quite rightly say that the victims of those crimes are who we feel sorry for. The victims and their families and everybody that was affected. But there is, and you will know this, an enormous number of people who are still debating this trial and the justification and everything. It's on the front of the Telegraph. What's your take on the Lucy Letby situation? Because it seems to be, Annabelle Denham, a story that won't go away.
It does. I think Lucy Letby has become something of a cause celeb, and we will continue to see campaigners calling for retrials, and there will be appeals which will go through the courts. Of course, she's already had some denied. My gut feeling is that the jury arrived at the right conclusion, and that justice is currently being served. What I would just say, Jeremy, is a sort of slightly tangential point, is that if you look at the sequencing of all of this, it seems apparent to me that the NHS's response, when some of the concerns were raised, very, very serious, grave concerns were raised, that the NHS's instinct was to try and close ranks and protect itself. And in many ways, this is the behavior of an individual who seemingly, to me at least, was a monster who committed these atrocious acts and destroyed families. And our thoughts, of course, are with the bereaved. But I think that the NHS has serious questions to answer. Which probably won't be raised, and those who are in senior positions will probably find that once again it's a revolving door, and they'll move from one senior position to another, and nobody will really, beyond Lucy Letby, be held accountable for what happened at that hospital to those poor babies. And I just wish that when we have these terrible scandals like this, then it would give cause for us to reflect on the failings of our national healthcare service, beyond, of course, the fact that we've got massive waiting lists and some of the poorest health outcomes of any developed country.
I completely agree with you. And the only thing I would add, and I'll let you go, is I completely agree that people get involved. But, David Davis, as an example, is an incredibly renowned, experienced politician. He has talked about the problems with this case for a long time. He's not a conspiracy theorist. And therein, the whole issue, you're so right the way you put it. We can talk about absolutely the horrors on the victims' families and what happened. We can talk about the NHS, undoubtedly we are. And there's no way that this woman should become sort of some celeb. But it's one of those stories, it's front page of your paper today. The demand, for a review grows ever stronger on a daily basis. Annabel Denham, thank you so much. Before you go, light-hearted, because I know you like a laugh. Team Brooklyn or Team Posh and Becks, Annabel Denham?
I think I'm Team Brooklyn, having read that staggering. Oh, Jeremy disagrees.
No.
I felt quite sorry for him reading some of the allegations that he's made against his family. And my feeling is that somebody in his position doesn't choose to be famous, do they? And he has spent his entire life in the spotlight. And you can argue that he then pursued perhaps careers that kept him in the public eye, but it cannot have been easy for him. Nevertheless, it's never particularly pleasant, always a bit unedifying when
I'll tell you what's unpleasant.
To air their dirty laundry in public.
I'll tell you what's unedifying is if his mother did quirk or grind or whatever it is at his wedding. I mean, we did, and you can tell me to do one, but I know you've got a sense of humour. We did set out this morning and say, what's the most embarrassing thing that your mother's ever done to you? Well, mine's dead, so I can't tell the story. Have you got a story for us, Annabelle? What's the most embarrassing thing your mother's done to you?
Oh, I couldn't do that, Jeremy. I'm sorry. I've just complained about people airing their dirty laundry.
Great line.
To the public.
Denham.
I'm not about to do it myself.
You are a journalist of supreme talent. We thank you so much today. I know how busy you are. Deputy Comment Editor for The Telegraph, Annabel Denham. Thank you very much indeed. Talking about the Chinese embassy, talking about Chagos, talking about Lucy Letby. As I said, her lawyer, Mark MacDonald, her barrister, will be here ahead of 10 o'clock. And Julia and Ian, of course, from 1 o'clock this afternoon. This is interesting. Joe in Bournemouth. This is one of those stories that you think, yeah. He says, morning, Jez. The letter left behind for the next government won't, like the last one from the Labour government, say there's no money left. It will simply read, hello, we're bankrupt. The country's on the brink of blackouts and we're owned by China. It's almost like they're trying to leave as big a mess as possible. I'm really, says Joe, worried about the the future of this once great nation. And Reg says, I used to be a very proud man who loved his queen and country. I still love my country. I don't have a lot of time anymore for our king, who doesn't seem to be able to see what's going on. Morning, Johnny.
Morning, Jez. Just wanted to put a little bit of a different take on this Trump-Greenland business. Trump says that we were stupid for giving away the Chagos Islands for no reason at all. And I agree with him, but isn't that what he's asking Denmark to do?
women are being thrown under the bus, and that's because you've got people in these organisations who are completely captured by rabid gender ideology, and they can't accept that the Supreme Court has set out, it didn't change the law, it set out what the law says, which is that you can believe in biological sex is real, it's important that women can have access to female-only changing spaces, and yet all of these women are being hounded and harassed by their workplaces. They face huge stress and huge worry.
They claim that they're ramping up deportations, that they're serious about getting rid of foreign criminals and those that have failed to win the right to remain in our country. A pretty small group, as you said anyway, Kev. But then when you actually look at what's really going on, you find that there is a supermax detention facility, all built with a state-of-the-art bells and whistles at a cost of £70 million to the taxpayer.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:27. Julia here at 10. So it's still all about the Beckhams, lies and videotapes. Apparently and allegedly Victoria grinded on her own son at his wedding. That humiliated him. He's traumatised. We've asked questions like, what did your mother do to embarrass you? And then Christian just flummoxed me, as he said to me through the glass during that ad break. Jez, do you ever wonder whether in years ahead your own children will sell stories to newspapers in an expose, to which I said, I'll bloody well help them write it, to be perfectly honest, for a few quid. Don't worry about that. Ernie, and he drove the fast... Never mind. Jez, the Chagos giveaway was all part of the deal with the Chinese. They've probably told Starmer no one else will invest in your country because your socialist policies are so far left. But if you give our friends Mauritius the Chagos Island and you let us build a massive building in the centre of your capital capable of holding more soldiers than you've got in your entire damn army, we'll spend billions turning your country into a satellite of ours. Most people, Ernie, would say that you're nuts. I don't think you are. Jez, I'd love to be a fly on the wall during the regular meetings with Starmer and the King. Ooh, how's it going? Oh, I don't think it's going very well. Would you like a cup of tea? Tell me about the trees. Ooh, lovely. I don't know about trees. We've got some Chinese plants. I quite like Chinese. I don't know what's wrong with me now. It's all getting to my head. Tell your mother. Chris in Northumberland. Jez, it's at the point where we have to stop being annoyed with Starmer. He's a lost cause and an absolute bleeding maniac. I'm far more annoyed at the Labour Party MPs and members continuing to prop him up. They're collectively to blame every single day. The thing is, Chris, most people with a brain cell would say, and I mean this nicely, right, that actually worse could be to come without him. Ed Miliband. I mean, we're trillions in debt and he wants to even further destroy us with this net zero rubbish. Let's just put a smile on our faces at 9:30 because the one piece of good news that's come out of a miserable day is that Meghan Markle's been cancelled by Netflix. Good morning, Rupert Bellybill. How are you?
Good morning. I did like your reference to Benny Hill, Ernie, and the fastest milkman in the West, and Two-Ton Ted from Teddington. He was a wicked man in that song. But anyway...
yes. Where are you? You're not in your usual seedy little cubby hole in your checked shirt. Where are you? In rehab?
No, this is at home. I probably tidied it up. That maybe doesn't... I've actually thrown a lot of... Had a New Year clear out, if that's all right.
Is this the man cave? Is it?
Well, it's half of it is my side, and the other half, the bit you see in the back is my side. The other half is the Trouble and Strifes. But
is that the Trouble and Strifes handbag on the right there, the orange one, or have you now gone into alternative fashion there, Belly? There's a...
I don't know what that is, actually. But anyway.
Rupert Bell, let us celebrate. Meghan Markle humiliated, and we all know about cancellation if you call Jeremy Kyle or Rupert Bell. Netflix show cancelled after dismal viewing figures. That's a shock because it was so entertaining, wasn't it, Rupert?
It was, I don't know how many episodes I watched, but my life, it nearly drove me to my grave, I think. It was desperate. It really had nothing to commend it as far as I am concerned.
No.
Yes, she, and they now obviously no longer has a deal with Netflix. It's a sort of first look arrangement, which is, as you know, is one of those sort of Well, yes, we'll have a look at your idea, and if we like it, at least gives us first dibs. But their ideas haven't exactly set the world on fire. So I have to say it's no surprise. What we think we will get is bite-sized little Instagram videos of her cooking.
Oh, great. We'll look forward to that. Yeah, that'd be great.
And the other thing she said, it was quite hard work to do. Well, funnily enough, working is quite hard work, even if you see what I mean, if that's not stating the bleeding obvious. But it's no surprise. I think it's a relief to all and sundry. But a cookbook is coming out, I believe, which will tell us how to display vegetables, no doubt. But anyway.
What's that on your hand? What's that on your hand? A glove on?
My glasses, just in case you make me read something.
All right, no. You and I won't be buying that book. I want to bring it to where we're at in the world. Don't ask you to get political, but there's all sorts of turmoil going on. Trump calling out Keir Starmer and saying, the Chagos thing is humiliation, it's self-serving, you idiot, blah, blah, blah. Overnight tearing him a second one by saying, your country's on its backside, it's not acceptable the way that you do it, you need to straighten it out, immigration, energy, all of that. Many people are saying that King Charles, who is due to visit America this year, a sort of reverse state visit, Trump came here, this could be in jeopardy because Starmer is going to stand up to Trump. Well, that's never going to happen because he's going to roll over. He won't even go to Davos. Is the King's visit in jeopardy, Belly?
Well, I think there are some serious political issues going, as we know, this whole Greenland issue. And if he does go through with his threat of invading it, what does actually Europe do to react? And, the King shouldn't necessarily, on that basis, be going to celebrate 250 years of independence, which is why he is going in the first place. And actually, we've seen Prince William even put his head above the political parapet yesterday, coming out supporting pubs and the importance of pubs. So the royal family are in I don't say in a difficult position, but the King has to do his country's bidding when it comes to foreign visits. So it does put him in a bit of a quandary. Now, the King reportedly gets on well with President Trump, who is flattered at every...
But he'd loathe him, Belly, in public. You and I both know that. He'd loathe everything Trump is in private, wouldn't he?
Well, he does test people's patience, does President Trump. So I think even the King knows what he's got to do, his sense of service.
Duty.
And he's representing Britain. And that means, they are supposedly our closest allies. But actually, this whole going to America thing could actually put Prince William in a bit of a quandary because he is president of the FA. And as you know, it's World Cup year. England are one of the favourites. There will be plenty of other European countries who will be going to America to play in the summer. Now, and if the thing develops and goes even further, he does carry out his threat, what does that do about the World Cup? But more importantly, generally that's a huge issue. But for William, as president of the FA, should he be going to America? If he, because in a way, going to America, if it turns out the way Trump wants it, then you've got a whole series of problems going forward. So for the royal family, it's not easy. So I'm sure they're taking advice. 1 minute President Trump's supposed to be in Davos, but suddenly the plane turns back with an electrical fault. You never quite know what you're going to get with him. So for the royal family, they will be watching developments very closely indeed, as we all are. But for the royal family and the King, this state visit, I think, would have to be under some sort of question at the moment as to whether he feels comfortable going, given what he's doing in terms of talking about Greenland.
OK. Also, just talking about visits, stuff in the paper last week before we spoke, actually, that Prince Harry, is it Invictus this year or next year? Very briefly.
Next year, but there would be a year anniversary in the summer. It's taking place in Birmingham. He's obviously in this country at the moment, but will he come in the summer doing a sort of year anniversary? Because Invictus seems to be the only thing he's got to do from a working perspective. He didn't set it up, all members of the royal family, but it's very much seen as his sort of personal fiefdom. But it's not without complications for him, because the complication is, what does he do about the wife when it comes to Invictus
Yeah,
Games?
well,
Because
there's
she
a lot
does
of
love being centre stage.
There's a lot of rubbish in Birmingham, so she'd probably be all right. I mean, honestly, yeah, that's very interesting. Now, Prince William, and everybody knows I'm a fan, I want to help pubs. What the hell does that mean?
Well, I think he says, you know, reading what he said, he was in Scotland yesterday in his capacity as the Duke of Rothesay, that's his Scottish title.
Yes.
Where he was in a pub. He got a half a pint, which his wife said, well, you haven't finished the pint, half pint. Given Mike Tyndall did call him 1 pint Willie, didn't he, when they did that podcast. But I think what he's saying, the value of the pub, is the community aspect of it. And as we know, a lot of pubs at the moment, and even around where I live, you know, I can see the closing signs going on so many pubs around here. They are an important part, particularly, well, of all life, wherever you are. The meeting people brings people together. And obviously pubs feel, you know, at the moment, it's a talking point, and it's something that I agree with. I agree wholeheartedly with him with regards to the importance of the pub as a sense of community.
Stop there a sec. Is this our future King, William, speaking out against Chancellor Rachel Reeves' appalling attack on that hospitality sector with those rates? And as everybody knows, this is causing hundreds of pubs, the length and breadth of this country, to close. Is this Prince William supporting this industry against the Labour government?
Well, he never says anything against the government, but he says by flagging the fact, the significance of the pub, it probably might just be making Rachel Reeves wince into her cup of coffee or tea this morning that he has actually said the pubs, when it is such a political hot potato. People are, particularly in the rural communities, pretty angry about this.
Yeah.
It's just another in the rural part, and I can feel it. You know, farmers, pubs, you know, they are so integral to bringing small villages together, and you know, every single one of them. So it's the nearest, I think, you've got the Prince William, and he chose his words carefully as to say it's really good for people's mental health and all what it does to bring people together. So it, in many ways, is a veiled threat, I would say, or a dig at what is going on with regards to pubs and the hospitality industry.
There's only one problem with what happened yesterday. He missed a PR opportunity, didn't he?
What should he have done?
What pub would you have sent him to?
The Duchess of Sussex, the Duke of Sussex?
No, the Prince of Wales. There's got to be a Prince of Wales pub somewhere in Scotland, isn't there?
I would have. Well, there might be a Duke of Rothesay pub, but I don't. But he was his wife. They played a bit of curling, didn't they? So they went round. Anyway, there we go. Sorry, you've caught me out there, Jeremy. I'm not quick.
Off air, I'm going to give you a treble for Cheltenham, for the Cheltenham Festival. That's guaranteed to make you a load of money, Rupert Bell. Not that we condone gambling.
Do you want me to embarrass my late mother?
Oh, she's dead as well, yes? Please, what did your mother do?
Well, I fell off my pony aged 10 and lay on the ground in front of a whole lot of people, and she said, Rupert, get back on that pony and stop lying on the ground like a footballer. And bearing in mind this was in the 60s when, you know, football was played slightly differently to then. And unfortunately for my mother, I never got back on another pony because I thought it hurt. But anyway, there you go. That's my
Can I just point out that the reason that Rupert Bell as a broadcaster works so well is he's able to share his life and realise that he's a real man of the people. This is how this works. Do you know, when I was a younger boy, I fell off my pony and my mummy said to me, get off the ground, young Rupie. You're making an absolute scene of yourself. It's a disgrace. God bless you, though, for that. We love you, Belly. We're looking forward to seeing you at Cheltenham. Are you there every day?
I will be there every day on behalf of Talk Sport, and, you know, never know, we might bump into each other and let's have a glass of shandy together.
Only half a pint in the Prince of Wales. Rupert Bell, thank you very much indeed. Talk Breakfast. Good morning, Jay.
Hi, Jeremy. Fantastic show as always. I just want to point out why we've got the worst person and worst party in power at the moment is you just look at the things like the Ukraine, rare earth minerals. Whereas Starmer once come out and said, yeah, we want to recoup some of our money to make the lives of the British people better. He hasn't. You know, we haven't got involved in that. Trump's come out because he's looking after his people financially in the future. You know, it's the whole Greenland thing. Britain should be in with the US saying, absolutely, we need to protect that area. And we want some of them rare earth minerals. We want to be involved in that. You know, it just seems they're just absolutely like a bunch of fried eggs. Honestly, I just can't get my head around it. And they're going to buy all the stuff from China, aren't they? They're going to buy the solar panels. All the chips are going to be in everything, spying, listening to us. It just makes no sense.
Thank you, Jay. Can I just, before we get to a break, I just want to... A lot of people will say, oh, you don't like ITV. I couldn't give a fat rat's ass about ITV, but I'm going to make a point now. Because one of the things that infuriates me about this show is, and we've made it patently clear, that we will have all sides. We'll speak to the Conservatives every day, the Tory party, right? Put up somebody on their round. Bear in mind the apathy towards them after 14 years. I say fair play. We have politicians from Reform. Not once has the Labour Party bothered to come on to a station that might challenge, I think, some of its decisions in a balanced way and answer that. This is typical of this government. Richard just says in Yorks, I've just watched the most cringe-worthy interview on Good Morning Britain and ITV when Ed Miliband, probably the most dangerous man in this awful bloody government, was given the easiest ride ever by Ed Balls and Susanna Reid. What was the thinking behind Balls being given the job of interviewing his old pal? That's the point, though, isn't it? If you go on to media that are just going to say, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, the real audience are going to go, you're too scared of being found out. I repeat my quest to Steve Reed, to Nick Simmons-Thomas or Thomas Simmons, all these people that used to come on the show on Drive Time. Come on. I'm not going to bite. I just want you to justify some of the decisions you've made. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, almost 10:15. No subject are we not prepared to talk about, however emotive, on this station and on this show. Next up, front page of the Telegraph today, Lucy Letby yesterday will face no new criminal charges into the deaths of 2 more babies following a police probe. There have been and are continuing people in the Commons and outside and in the media who believe that the lady who is currently in jail, the trial should be looked at, the details should be looked at. That includes David Davis, a very respected Tory MP. We're pleased now to have her barrister, possibly a difficult job, Barrister for Lucy Letby, Mark MacDonald. Mark, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to start not to be anything other than straight, because I appreciate you coming on, but this is the sort of thing that you fight against. This is Paul in Fife, and he knew you were coming on. Lucy Letby is another Shamina Begum. In my mind, she's a monster. Any doubts about her conviction should disappear when you remember the ghastly, monstrous letters of sympathy she sent to the parents of those little babies. Only a mad woman would do that. I'm sick of the bandwagon to get her another retrial. And I think it's only fair to say to you, Mark, you're best placed to answer that text, not me.
Well, here's the difficulty. I mean, that comment is based upon the premise that she's guilty. And it would now seem, given the 31 international experts that have come forward and looked at all the medical records, the transcripts of the whole trial, and all the prosecution experts, that they have identified no crime that's ever been committed. And in fact, that this was a neonatal unit, like so many in our country, that was in crisis. that lacked resources, lacked experience in dealing with neonates and their issues, and there were problems in it. And what the international panel of experts have identified, in fact, are a series of issues and problems that have led to this baby dying that did not involve Lucy Letby. And once you've got that, once you've realised that the central focus of the trial was expert evidence from prosecution experts was actually wrong, and their evidence was wrong, and not wrong because another of the doctors said it's wrong, but wrong because the international experts, those who are the best in the world, have said it's wrong, then we really need to relook at this whole conviction and get it back to the Court of Appeal.
Let me ask you a question. These international panel of experts, 31 of them that you've said, why was this information not apparent, available already at the original trial then?
As you know, I was not trial counsel, and that's not just a cop-out. I wasn't trial counsel, and I wasn't involved in the meetings in deciding what experts should be instructed and what experts should not be instructed. I came in afterwards, and that's when, having met and spoken with Professor Shu Lee, who is the leading neonatologist in Canada, he decided to put together this international panel from across the world to look at it. And you know, Jeremy, it's really important because he said to me right at the beginning, look, I am going to publish my findings. If my findings point to her guilt, then I am going to say so. And I'm going to say it publicly. So you instruct me, but you're not going to hide my conclusions in the bin if you don't like them. And
no,
so,
I get that, and I get also. Listen, I'm not. I've said on this show, I'll put all sides. I'm going to ask you man to man, because I've been one of those people that will read that in the papers this morning. I'll see the heinous crimes that have committed. I've probably said terrible things. I've seen David Davis come out, and probably Christian and the gang have talked about it. When you look Lucy Letby in the eyes, did she kill those babies in your mind?
No, absolutely not. And listen, I've been a criminal defence barrister now for 27 years, and that means I only defend, I don't prosecute. Which means that I have done and represented people accused of the most heinous crimes. And let me tell you this, Jeremy, man to man, 99% of those that I represent, 99% are guilty. All right, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try and pull wool over you. You're not sitting on my jury. However, things go wrong in this country.
Yep.
Innocent people land up in prison. We've known that for the last 2 generations. We can tell the amount of people that were wrongly convicted, and Lucy Letby is one of those.
When you say you looked into her eyes, right? When you say you weren't counsel, as you said it, one of the leading defence criminal barristers in the United Kingdom, you will also have put your all into defending people that you know are guilty, because that's your job. Have you ever turned a case down? Just bear with me, because I've never been able to ask a barrister this, right?
No, because there's actually...
If you'd looked Lucy Letby in the eyes and in your gut as a man with all that experience, you'd have thought yes. Would you have turned the case down?
Well, let's go back to have I ever turned a case down, and let me come back onto your question. First of all, you know, as a barrister, if you're instructed in the case and you say no, then it's a professionally disciplinary offence. You can be struck off for it. There's a whole rule that governs our profession called the cab rank rule, similar to the yellow thing on the cab that always has to pick you up. It's called the cab rank rule. And in essence, it means that any person, no matter what you are charged with, terrorism, paedophilia, whatever it may be, your barrister can't refuse to represent you. And if they do, they're struck off. That's the problem. But actually, Lucy fits into a different category because I'm representing her pro bono. I'm not being paid to do it. I'm voluntarily doing it. I'm voluntarily doing it. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I believe that our system sometimes fails people.
You are representing her free of charge?
I have done for the last 2 years. I haven't earned 1 penny. And I do it because I have a strong conviction that she is innocent, that she has been wrongly convicted. But to do that, it is hard for those looking outside into a system, but I've worked within this system. And I know, like you've worked in your system, you know things go wrong.
Yep.
You know there are issues, you know there are concerns. Like I know, working in my system, like a doctor would know working in the health service, things go wrong. And more so now, probably, than any time before, because each and every day we have a neonatal unit in crisis, we have a maternity unit in crisis, we have babies dying wrongly across this country.
I don't have, and I'd love to have. Do you know what? I'm so annoyed. I'd love to have more time. I want to ask a few direct questions. When was the last time you spoke to Lucy Letby?
I'm speaking to her today. I haven't spoken to her for a couple of weeks. We generally talk every 2 weeks, but I've got a call into her at 3 o'clock today.
And how is her demeanour? Is she confident that, you know...
Well, you know, when I first met her, she was a broken woman. She was a woman that, you know, was red from exhaustion of crying. Her tears, I don't want to be over emotive about this, were pretty much dried up. She'd lost everything. She'd lost absolutely everything. And she'd been sentenced to the rest of her life in jail. Today, right now, she has new hope. Finally, people are listening to her. She said right from the beginning, I did not do this. And now people are saying, you know what, Lucy, we actually believe that you may not have done this.
Final question to you, and I respect and I really respect you coming on, because I do want to give both sides. What do you? It must be difficult. You talked about you believe her, you've looked in her eyes, you've talked about, you know, the rules of Barristor. What do you say to the families of her victims? Does not dredging this all up again cause even more horror and nightmares for people who went through that trauma?
I agree. It is, and it's horrendous. They lost their baby. Whatever we say about this, a baby died, so they went through the grief. Then they were told that somebody murdered that child. Then they sat through a trial, and then they get me coming along saying, hold on, something's gone wrong here, and this is an innocent woman. And they have a right to be angry, Jeremy. But at the end of the day, if I am right, if the international experts are right, and she is innocent, then their anger needs to be pointed in a different direction, the direction of the police that started the whole process.
Mark, I'd love to have more. We're going to keep in touch with you, mate. We're going to follow this story, and we very much appreciate you being on Talk Breakfast today. Excellent. Mark McDonald, Barrister for Lucy Letby. Whatever your thoughts. The guy said before she's a monster. Mark says, I looked her in the eyes. I think she's innocent. It's a story that will not go away. This is Talk Breakfast.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it. I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome about 5 to 10. We're live across the UK. If you knew what goes on behind the scenes, the last conversation will have amused you. Competition details on the way. Calls on the way. Terence says Starmer & Reeves' deal has sold Britain to China. The Chagos deal will impoverish Britain for the next 99 years. China has bought Britain just like America would like to buy Greenland. Stan the man in Cheshire says Jeremy Starmer is doing his best to ruin our great country because nobody likes him. He will go down in history as the worst PM in history. What a legacy to remember by. And the only reason he's not going to Davos is because he's scared of Donald Trump. This is interesting. really interesting. Ed Millipede, the man who wants to bankrupt this country with net zero madness, is apparently... Well, he won't come here, obviously he won't. But he, when asked on Sky News, said, I'm perfectly happy with the Chinese embassy. That could be a complete nightmare in terms of security. This is Millipede earlier.
Reuters reporting the PM's going to China next week. We are, of course, expecting, that Chinese trip. Were you comfortable with the idea that this embassy has been granted in London?
Absolutely. Look, and I think what's clear is that we had advice from the security services. We've got the very respected cross-party Intelligence and Security Committee, which said it was content with the decision. We engage with China. We challenge China where necessary. If you take my area of climate change, for example, there's no solution to the climate crisis without working with China. But we disagree with China profoundly on a number of issues, and we say so, and we challenge them.
Can I challenge this idiot, right? Here's two things I want to say. We've taken advice from the security services. No, you haven't, because the security services said, don't do it, you total idiot. And also, maybe the reason that he's cozying up to China is because all those bloody solar panels that he wants to put in the length and breadth of this great country are made in China. Now, I'm duty-bound to tell you that you could win an amazing trip of a lifetime to San Francisco, a 3-night, 4-star stay in the Intercontinental Hotel, money in your pocket and tickets to the Super Bowl. Just listen to the details ahead of JHB, please.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343-418-7260. Lines close 22nd January 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at TalkSport.com. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Good luck with that competition. San Francisco is a fantastic town. We say a very good morning to Lady in Pink.
There we go. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
She's grinding on me. What do you make of Brooklyn? Come on, whose side are you on?
Oh, I'm totally on Brooklyn's.
Are you?
I know, I hate a Nepo babe, whatever we're calling them. No, not a fan on that front, but from what I know, from what I've gathered, absolutely.
What's the most embarrassing thing your mother ever did to you? Mine's dead, so I can't do it.
I definitely can't. There were some haircuts in the 70s for which she should go to prison. You know, when they put the bowl, the old beetle cut.
They did do that, didn't they?
People joke about it. They literally did that.
Horrible women.
They literally did that. Anyway.
What's tickling your fancy, JHB?
Well, obviously Trump telling Starmer to straighten out the UK. I mean,
immigration,
problem London.
Drilling, brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong about that. This is the thing about Donald Trump. These are epic press conferences do my head in. I can't bear them. But it is just like, he does say some things that need to be said.
Can I just say, it makes our job a hell of a lot easier to actually tell the Prime